allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please call the roll.
Monica Duran,
Present.
Zachary Urban,
Present.
Janice Hoppy,
Present.
Christy Davis,
Here.
Tim Fitzgerald, George Pond,
Present.
Larry Matthews,
Present.
Genevieve Wooden.
Present.
Madam Mayor, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Are there any changes to the study notes of November 7th? Hearing none, they do stand as presented. We have a proclamation, presentation of Parks Award. I don't have it with me. I assume I'm going to go forward.
That's it. Thank you, Mayor, Council. We are here this evening to officially present the CAPRA Accreditation Award to our Parks and Recreation Department. This is something that we've announced in the last couple months when we actually received the award in St. Louis a few months ago. But we have some individuals here tonight to accept the award and to help us to present the award. So I'd like to introduce Joyce Manwaring, our Parks and Recreation Director, who spearheaded this effort. Accreditation is a process that is governed by national organizations. There's one for the Parks and Rec field. There's also for the Police Department, which, as you know, the Police Department has received 2 accreditations already, and our Public Works Department is going to be working on it next. So it's a best practice process to ensure both our policymakers and our citizens that we are meeting and upholding to the best standards in the industry. So it's a great award. I'm very proud of our department, Joyce. So with that, I'll turn it over to Joyce.
Thank you, Patrick. I want to introduce Dirk Richwine, who's here to present the accreditation crystal to our department and the city this evening. Dirk's a certified park and recreation professional who holds a master's degree in public administration from Golden State University and a bachelor's degree in community recreation from Arizona State University. Dirk has worked in the parks and recreation field for over 31 years, including 5 years as Director of Parks, Recreation, and Community Services for the City of Brighton, and 15 years with the City of Henderson, Nevada, where he spent 9 years as Assistant Director. Dirk currently lives in Parker, so we're lucky to have him back in the state. He's been active in our professional and associations, including President of the Nevada Recreation and Park Society, Board Member on the NRPA Administrators Network, and Chair of the Rocky Mountain Revenue Management School, among others. Dirk is currently the Vice Chair on the Commission for Accreditation of Parks and Recreation Agencies, CAPRA, which is the agency that awards accreditation to departments. So Dirk, I want to thank you for attending tonight to present the crystal. And I also want to tell you that Dirk served as our mentor over a 2-year process, providing us guidance and training. Answering our questions about accreditation was immensely helpful to us in achieving this. So we appreciate your time to our department and your volunteer time to the Parks and Recreation profession.
Thanks, Joyce. Accreditation, the Commission on the Accreditation of Parks and Recreation Agencies was developed to prepare best practices from across the country for parks and recreation agencies to apply those with the theory that with those being applied, services would be delivered professionally to their communities. In Parks and Recreation, there are 150 standards in 10 different chapters. And in order to apply, you have to complete the self-assessment, and a visit from outside professionals come and looked at Wheat Ridge earlier this summer. They prepared a report and sent that back to the Commission on Accreditation, which then approved that for Wheat Ridge. There are only approximately 160 agencies accredited from throughout the United States. So this is a very prestigious award in that you're in a very small company of the best practices across the United States. And with that, I'd like to present this to Joyce and the Parks and Recreation Department in the City of Wheat Ridge, their accreditation
Thank you, Dirk. I just wanted to say a few additional words, about our department. We're very proud of the accomplishment and the quality assurance that it provides our citizens in the city. Working on the self-assessment report was very rewarding as well as enlightening. And I'd like to recognize the Parks and Recreation staff behind me here for their leadership and guidance. We have Julie Brisson, Parks and Facilities Manager, Rick Murray, our Parks, Forestry, and Open Space Manager, and Matt Anderson, Parks and Recreation Analyst. And I'd like to also thank all the employees who worked on the self-assessment report and worked towards accreditation through all the levels of the department. And there were a lot of people involved helping to document and create policies and document our best management practices. So I'd like to thank all of those and all those employees for their continued service to the citizens of Wheat Ridge every day. And also I'd like to thank Mayor, City Council, fellow department heads, and of course Patrick for all of your support through the years. We couldn't do it without all of you. So thank you.
And Joyce, let me also, for the council and myself, congratulate you and tell you that we're proud of all of you, Julie, Rick, Matt. You've really brought a nice gift to our city, and we appreciate it. Okay, we can move on to citizens' right to speak. I see I have a little list coming forward here. Thank you. We're going to start with Roger Morin. Roger, please come forward, give us your address.
Thank you, Mayor Jay. Council, my name is Roger Morin, and I live at 3550 Miller Court. I'm here to ask that you think through and perhaps ask the assistance of staff on what might be the hazards and drawbacks to our community of Colorado's End-of-Life Options Act. This act, most recently known as Proposition 106, makes assisted death legal for patients with a prognosis of death within 6 months. My thanks to Council members Fitzgerald and Pond for corresponding with me as I thought through what I might say on this. So I'll make 3 points. First, the End-of-Life Options Act seems, in my opinion, antithetical to Wheat Ridge's values of family and health. Our vision describes a community of families and residents enjoying an active, healthy lifestyle. So many of our ordinances cite the protection of public health, safety, and welfare as rationale. Obviously, health and safety apply to all citizens, regardless of circumstance, but this new act challenges these types of protections. For one, the protection of health must include mental and spiritual health. It is always important at any age for a person to find meaning in his or her own life, as difficult and even impossible as that may seem at times. My personal experience with my parents and in-laws through their declining physical health and eventual admittance into hospice is that mental and spiritual health remain crucial to the end. Also, the definition of family must include those without children and those who are unmarried, divorced, or widowed. In other words, a family of one. Second, the demographics of Wheat Ridge suggest that those who might qualify for the End-of-Life Options Act will increase. I'm probably not alone in my gut that our population is gradually aging. What value will our city continue to place on this aspect of our population? The underlying issue is that the number of people who might feel cultural, even moral pressure to end their lives may well increase, and they need a life-giving, supporting place to turn. Some will have family and friends and church, but many will not. Everyone deserves a place to turn. Third, I want to acknowledge our community already does much for its senior population. For example, elder outreach, the parks, senior limited housing, and I compliment our council and staff. Council, please consider the appointment of a council member specifically charged with overseeing the needs of the elderly. in part since the End of Life Options Act may change how they and others view their importance and their value to our community. In summary, my request is to council is to think through what might be the hazards and drawbacks of Colorado's this act to our community, and what the city might do to continue to protect and serve its citizens who might qualify under this act. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger. Mike Herman?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I want to thank you for having me up here tonight. My name is Mike Herman. I actually live at 5410 Juniper Court in Golden. I do operate and own a business in the city of Wheat Ridge. But I'm here on behalf of, what's that?
Could you spell your last name?
Herman. I'm actually here tonight on behalf of the Wheat Ridge Backpack Program. I sit as co-chair on the program, have had since I think the program started. And first of all, I know we were able to present our backpack program funding to the Citizens Committee. The council and the city of Wheat Ridge has been kind enough to support our program, I believe, for the last 4 years, if I'm not mistaken. And I know you have given consideration again to funding this program again this year from the Citizens recommendation, the Citizens Board recommendation. I just wanted to update you a couple pieces of information on the program. One is the increased costs that the program has incurred over the last 6 to 12 months. You may or may not be aware, but the Arvada Food Bank costs has went up. The cost to our backpack program, each backpack has also went up as a result of that cost. It's increased food costs, the quality of food that's being delivered to the kids, the children in the 4 schools that we have, Color Strand, Stevens, Pennington, and Head Start, Wheat Ridge Head Start. With that, they've also have a storage problem at Arvada Food Bank. They cannot store the food effectively, so they're having to reach outwards, and which is going to increase their costs as well. And then we've had an increase in student count consistently over the past 3 or 4 years. I don't know exactly what the exact count's going to be next year, but we have a feeling it's going to increase as well. We have not seen any type of decrease. Right now, we're serving about 358, 360 children in the 4 schools every week. So it's a cost of about $35,000 to $40,000 budget. So again, I wanted to come up tonight to just simply give my thanks to you for consideration of this program. We think it's an effective program. We do think it's making a difference. Tremendous difference. I work at the Pennington program, so I go over there and sack but they don't even need volunteers anymore. They've shooed away at the Arvada Fire Department volunteers because the parents are all participating in the program now. So it is starting outreach to the program. I think we're going to start doing some more surveys again, see what kind of feedback we get, but I think it is making a big difference. So consideration that you're giving to this program, we truly, truly appreciate it. Funding's tight. We know that. You have a lot of requests, a lot of people asking for money, so your support for this program is truly appreciated. I just want to tell you thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Okay,
John Clark. You're good.
My name is John Clark. I live at 4665 Swadley Street. And I was one of the 8 people selected to be on that new outside agency review committee that was just spoken about. And I just want to let you know that it was very informative and very educational for me. I want to personally thank Carly. I can't really see if there she is. She did a fantastic job, guys. Fantastic. It had to be a very daunting task. She took 8 very different Wheat Ridge citizens from extremely different backgrounds and mindsets. Trust me, I know everybody now. And she proposed a budget of approximately 1/2 of the entire financial asks from almost 20 different agencies. And in the end, everyone got along, everyone listened, everyone understood everybody's differences, and everybody agreed to a proposed list of amounts granted to the different organizations. They all came and presented the who, what, where, and whens of their organizations, all to the committee, and we all compiled the mountain of information presented, and then presented that list to council for a proposal or for approval. So I'm here tonight to urge you to respect the enormous amount of time and effort that everyone put into this committee and caution council to understand that if you deviate from the recommendations, it's fine, it's your prerogative. But if you deviate from the recommendations for one group, I think, it's my own opinion, I think it sets into a motion, a precedent that every organization we heard from may feel slighted. I know of a few that may feel that way. And they figure they may too should come to council independently and ask for increased funding. Figuring that if council can change the recommendation for one group, why not my group or that group or this group? So after all, it is my belief that the reason the committee was formed in the first place was to alleviate all that time and effort from council's plate and put it somewhere else and give you those recommendations. So just gives that some thought. I mean, I appreciate everybody's presentations. It was a tough job, trust me. And I don't think anybody got everything they wanted. So just consider that. And I don't want to see multiple groups coming back and asking that you give them just a little bit more, this next group a little bit more. So thanks for your time.
Thank you. I don't have anyone else further signed up, so are there any changes to tonight's agenda? Hearing none, we'll go ahead as it's written out, and we'll start with the consent agenda by Mr. Urban.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Motion to adopt the 2017 regular City Council meeting calendar. Resolution number 45, 2016, designating City Hall lobby as the official public notice posting location for the Wheat Ridge Transcript as the official newspaper of the general circulation for the city publications 2017. C, motion to approve payment to Murphy Construction Company, LLC, Denver, Colorado, in the amount of $32,604 for the purposes of replacing additional trail as a part of the Clear Creek Trail Maintenance Replacement Project. And D, Resolution 49-2016, approving Clear Creek Trail replacement west of Moore for purposes of expending grant funds.
Thank you. Do you want to give us a motion on that? I move to approve items A, B, C, and D.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Pond. Any discussion? Please cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 2, Mr. Fitzgerald.
This is an ordinance for first reading. Council Bill 26-2016, an ordinance approving the rezoning of property located at 10001 West 32nd Avenue from residential 1 to planned mixed-use development for approval of an outline development plan, case number WZ 1601, Fountain on the Ridge. Oops, and just a minute, it just disappeared. The applicant is requesting approval of zone change from residential 1 to planned mixed-use development with an outline development plan for property located at 10,001 West 32nd Avenue. For the past 30 years, the property has been utilized as a group home for children allowed through a series of special use permits. The facility closed in 2013. While a majority of the buildings are currently not being used, there is an on-site property manager in one of the homes. Is a motion in order?
Yes.
I move to approve Council Bill 26-2016, an ordinance approving the rezoning of a property located at 10001 West 32nd Avenue from residential 1 to planned mixed-use development, and for approval of an outline development plan on first reading, ordered published, Public hearing set for Monday, January 9th, 2017 at 7 p.m. in City Council chambers, and that it take effect 15 days after final publication.
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Duran. And as we said, it's first reading, so please go ahead and cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0.
Okay, let's move on to item number 3, Mr. Pond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm happy to introduce resolution number 47-2016, a resolution adopting the city budget and appropriating sums of money to the various funds and spending agencies in the amounts specified for the city of Wheat Ridge, Colorado for the 2017 budget year. At issue, Section 10.9 of the Wheat Ridge City Charter requires that the budget be adopted by resolution on or before the final day, December 15th, 2016, established by state statute for the certification of the next year's tax levy to the county. I'm not going to read all the rest of the
You're not
numbers.
gonna
I'm
read
going to
all
let
it. We- we've
staff
seen
do
it many times. We have a staff presentation.
Just very, very short one tonight, Mayor Jay. We did the official public hearing at the last council meeting and gave an extensive presentation. Also gave an extensive presentation at the study session a few weeks before that. But we did present a balanced budget, as we are required to do by law to City Council. A total budget of just over $43 million. Of that amount, about $31 million is for our general fund operating budget, and just over a $5 million capital improvement program budget, and $6.7 million for our special revenue funds. This will provide that we meet the city's minimum reserve level by the end of next year, and we're projecting that will be 21.5%. As you know, the minimum reserve level is 17%. And with that, we have our budget team here this evening and our management team if there's any questions from City Council.
Council members, we have a full board. Ms. Davis.
So, my question could be for this year's budget or next year's budget, but, so I mentioned this at the last study session, and I do want to revisit the backpack program, and I want to make a couple comments before I make the request. I think that I agree 100% with Mr. Clark, and I agree in the process of how it was selected. I also agree that if we start making revisions to what that task force decided, that then we kind of open up possibilities of the asks from other folks. But I do feel that, unfortunately, when the backpack program presented the information at the time that these were being selected, they were not aware that their costs were going to be doubled. So I think that had they probably had presented the cost being doubled, that the amount of the dollar amount probably would have been allocated differently. So I would like to make a request that either if we have funds in this year's budget that we can allocate a little bit more to the backpack program. I was thinking $4,000 to $5,000 to the backpack program, either from this year's budget, or if there's a way that we could add an additional $4,000 to $5,000 to next year's budget. Patrick, I'll let you guide us on that. But some reasoning behind that is I do feel that a lot of the monies that we used and we allocated were kind of more discretionary spending. Meaning, in my book, money that we help support programs or events. And I can't, I mean, this is a need. This is not a discretionary, can we make sure this race happens, or this education program happens. I mean, there is a need there, and I just can't, I'm not comfortable not supporting some folks in making sure that they have the food to help the people in our community. We have shown it. We do show that there are plenty of families in our community that need this. So it is money that is going towards our community. So I would like to make that request of a change in that dollar amount. Let's round it. I'll just say 4,500. And then I don't know, is Mr. Herman still? I don't think he's still around. I have been doing some research, and from my outreach meeting, I see Bob out there, and there was, I think the more we get this out to folks, the more everyone is willing to participate. So I have reached out to those folks, and I'm going to look in to see what their plans are as far as fundraising. And then actually a couple folks that were at my outreach meeting a couple weeks ago have volunteered to start putting things on Facebook to encourage folks to donate to these programs, so folks in our community. So I do feel that there are efforts that we can do aside from providing dollars, but I just, with the amount that we gave to them in comparison to some of the other programs that to me are more discretionary spending, I really feel that I'd like to provide them $4,500 more. Either, Patrick, whatever your suggestion might be, if it's this year's budget, that if we can find a way, or find a way in next year's budget.
Are there other comments on that? Ms. Wooden?
I think, first of all, I'd like to know if there is any money left in this year's budget.
Yeah, we typically don't spend everything that's budgeted, so we probably could find $4,500 in this year's budget. I think we have some contingency left.
Okay. I very much want to respect the process that we adopted for the Citizens Review Committee. I have nothing against the program whatsoever. In fact, I really support the program. I know it does wonderful work right in our community, and it does a lot of assistance right in our community. We did also, in addition to the backpack program, give another large amount to the Arvada Food Bank. So we are contributing to those causes, and I support Christy in requesting that we find out more of the fundraising efforts from the backpack program and help advertise that to our citizens, and maybe we can find other funding sources for the backpack program. However, for the 2017 budget, I very much want to respect the amounts that were put forth by the Citizen Review Committee. So for 2017, I'm supporting the amount here. For 2016, hopefully we can find a little bit of extra money to support the program that way from this year's budget.
Thank you. Mr. Matthews?
I was going to hold us for later, but since we're talking about the giving programs in general, I would like us to kind of revisit how we handle a lot of budget items for next year. As for instance, out on the giving items, we keep saying, well, we want this, or that somebody else wants that. I'd like to see these all totalized out and presented as a percent of our budget. And I think it's time for us to perhaps say, okay, we have so much for charity. And what concerns me a little bit is we are taking taxpayer money and then deciding who's going to get it. And maybe the majority of our taxpayers agree with it, maybe they don't. And I'm not necessarily against it, but I think we need to have some curbs and some vetting that goes on before we start allocating taxpayer money to what maybe are very good causes. I'm sure most of them are here, but I would like to see us consider this for our budgeting process next year. And I would,
for a percentage or something like
well,
that?
yeah, and we take a look and see as a percent of the total budget, maybe we need to set some boundaries, because we always have 20 more requests for money than what we are currently doing, and at some point in time, we have to have some controls on it. I think if you added up all the money in here and to all the agencies and people, it's an astounding amount in a way. Maybe not on $40 million, but it might be a drainage project. And so I think we need to consider that for the future.
Other comments? Ms. Duran?
Just a couple of comments. I would like to see, as Councilor Matthews mentioned, having the wants separated, such as like for you know, the outside agency committee, local works, ADAT, just to kind of look and break it down, see what we've given them the year before, what the ask is, and what we're giving them now. What I'd like to know with the backpack program is currently, do they do any type of fundraising? Have they done any fundraising? Do they participate with Colorado Gives Day? Is there anyone here that could answer those questions for me?
Chief Brennan probably could.
Chief,
Okay.
maybe.
And our Chief Brennan could
Oh, that'd
probably
be
answer some of
great.
those questions.
Thank you.
Mr. Herman left. Yep.
Thank you for your questions. I try to separate my role as police chief from my role of chairing this program. So for those of you that don't know, I know some of you know, about 6 years ago, the Arvada Community Food Bank approached me to see if I could do some fundraising for Pennington Elementary School. They were looking to start a Feed the Future program there, talked about 25 students, raising about $3,500 to $5,000 a year. And I said, yeah, I could do that. I generally would support a nonprofit in the community, muscular dystrophy, cystic fibrosis, a number of other charitable nonprofits in terms of fundraising, and tried to make it a department-wide event. So I started to do some fundraising. $3,500 is not a lot to raise in a community the size of Wheat Ridge. And that program grew from 25 to 35 students to 100 students in the first 6 months. So the budget grew to about $10,000 a school to provide food. So what we did was we worked with two nonprofits, the Wheat Ridge Community Foundation and the Arvada Community Food Bank, to set up a charitable donation process where people could, if they chose to and wanted to contribute to the funding, could write a check or give money to those nonprofits, and that money would be set aside for the Wheat Ridge Feed the Future program. Before the first year was over, people wanted to start a program at Color Strand, and then we added Stevens 3 years ago, elementary, and last year added the Wheat Ridge Head Start program. So we grew from approximately 25 to 35 students to about 358 students. The Arvada Community Food Bank's been a great partner. They fund, or I should say they support about 10 other elementary schools in the community of Arvada. If you Google Feed the Future programs, you'll see they're really national programs that exist everywhere. So we do our fundraising a couple of different ways. We've held events. We've done some silent auction events. We have outreached and get funding from the Optimist Club, from Wheat Ridge Rotary Club. We get a lot of citizens that contribute money to us annually during the Colorado Gives program. So right now our costs last year were right about $35,000, and we were able to raise that amount. We project our amount this year will be higher than that. So the city contributes has contributed about a third of our total expense. This next year it'll probably be a quarter of our total expenses. So there's a citizens committee that meets on a monthly basis that talks about fundraising, helps manage the program. There's really very limited administrative costs. I think a couple $100 a year to keep our our web page up and running. But our struggle a little bit in terms of the Colorado Gives is we have this difficulty because we're not a 501c3 ourselves to ask for money for the Wheat Ridge Feed the Future program when they're actually giving money to either the Wheat Ridge Community Foundation or the Arvada Community Food Bank. So, we operate on a shoestring. And, I've got about 10 really strong community members that contribute a lot of time to try to keep this thing going. At some point, I'm going to transition away from it, and that group's going to have to pick it up. But it is a valuable program. If you show up on a Thursday and you pack food, I know the city has volunteers that support it. Wheat Ridge Fire had, Arvada Fire had, the Optimists, the Rotarians, the Kiwanis, the Grange, all show up at different schools to support this program. It's very, very worthwhile when you see these kids receive food that they might not have over a weekend that helps get them through the weekend and able to come to school in an attitude of learning as opposed to an attitude of being hungry and looking for a handout. So,
Thank you, Chief.
all right, thank you.
One more comment. Thank you. My comment was, I mean, I support and want to make sure that our kids have, lunch and food. I think that they had asked for $3,000 when they were in last. We've given them $7,000 through the outreach committee. They've asked for $3,000. I think Councilor Davis had mentioned that maybe if you want to donate, you can go into your outreach funds for this year. So I would agree to anyone who wants to do that can. $3,000 as part of their request, I would support that. $4,500 I think is really reaching. I think we can all make some of that up through our outreach funds if we want to. But that's where I'm coming from. And thank you, Chief, for explaining to us what you do to raise money and what other organizations you work with. Because it's good for me to know because I had no idea. So thank you.
Ms. Hoppy.
So I do agree that, with Mr. Clark about opening the floodgates, and if we change what we had tasked the outside agency committee to do and all the time they had spent reviewing that information. I also see Ms. Davis's point of if they had that information prior, they would have presented it and the committee may have made a different decision. But I'd like to maintain where we're at for 2017. If we could potentially find the money in 2016, then I would support us spending that money with them. I know that they've done some big fundraisers in the past, like paint fundraisers, dinner galas at West 29th and stuff like that. I'd just like to see a few more of those maybe to kind of help push that together and support that a little bit more. But I do support if we can find some money from this year. And then I'd like to maintain where we're at with the outside agency recommendations from 2017.
Thank you. We're still on a question.
I guess it just, next year maybe if we looked at this and considered the amount of time that we spend grilling agencies and use that as a calculation on how much funding that we gave them, the backpack program would probably get the most funding, and then the Carnation Festival would get the second most funding, and then you'd go down from there, because it seems like as we've gone through this process, that's the way that this process is sort of bared out, is that we spent the most time sort of grilling the program that needs the most out of any of them. And I would agree with everybody, and it's hard to suggest otherwise, that the Feed the Future program doesn't need more funding. How can you not say that they don't? But it's also important to kind of look at this and understand that we're doing nothing in our, or next to nothing in our budget to really address the heroin epidemic in our community as well. These are also issues that are plaguing our community and need to be addressed because it's something that's striking our community just as much as anything else maybe as well. But yet we spend less than 5 minutes talking about what Local Works may or may not be doing. And I think that next year that there should not be this inside-outside agency type of business. All agencies should be outside of the city, applying to the city for funding in sort of an equal playing field. And everybody should sort of get an equal shot, and everybody should be working as sort of on an equal footing, and everybody should have some sort of equal scoring process. And there should be some sort of Maslow's hierarchy of need as it relates to who receives funding, because it does seem to me that when we look at these requests, how can you pit the Feed the Future program against the Carnation Festival, against Local Works? But to me, it seems like we are unfairly pitting these different programs against each other.
Thank you. We're still on questions, and then go ahead.
Just one brief thing. Looking over the list here, all of these are very worthy of money from us, and I agree with John. But this situation is slightly different in that this is the only thing on our list that really involves feeding hungry kids, hungry Wheat Ridge citizens. And I don't know if they were able to communicate that to the committee, the Citizens Committee, or not. Maybe John can tell us. But I think the price increase probably was unknown to them at the time. So I support Christie's initiative there.
Any other questions that need to be, because we're still on that? I'm going to go ahead then and open it up for public comment. We have a couple of people signed up, Christine Disney among them, followed by Janine Allen.
Good evening. I'm Christine Disney, and I live in District 2. My last name is spelled D-I-S-N-E-Y. In 2011, I volunteered at my first Local Works event, which was then known as Wheat Ridge 2020. And my life has not been the same since. I'd been living in Wheat Ridge since 1998 and had pretty much just slept in my house, driven to work, and shopped and partied everywhere but in Wheat Ridge. But I come from a family of people who believed in giving back to your community through either time or money. So I thought, well, I better start doing that. So I started volunteering for Wheat Ridge 2020 events. Numerous events and projects later, I am now the president of the board of directors. And I have seen the positive impact that Local Works has made in my life, and I have witnessed it for countless others. I was at a holiday event talking to several people that I didn't know 4 years ago, that I met through my volunteer efforts, that I now consider friends. And I know that that has happened for other people as well. So it's hard to put a dollar amount on the positive effects of what an organization can do to build a community. And Wheat Ridge is unique from every other community in the metro area in that regard. We very much are a community, and we recently came together to show our support by passing 2E. So we have the many events that Local Works puts on, as well as the loans that they give to homeowners to improve their homes and to make our community look better. Therefore, Local Works is fulfilling its mission to further Wheat Ridge as a vibrant and sustainable community. I would like to thank the City Council for their support of Local Works on past budgets, and I'm asking you to support and approve our budget request for 2017. Thank you.
Thank you. Janine Allen. Or Janine, I think that's what it is.
Good evening. Janine Allen, that's Janenne. Allen last name. I live in District 1, and I just wanted to come up here and share with you a little bit about my thoughts on Local Works. I moved here in 2008, and the one thing I can let you know it has done for me, it has enabled me to connect with this community. You know, you move here for location, the possibility that you have here, that the people who've lived here and made this their home for years have seen. And I really wanted to be able to start to explore that here as I moved to Colorado. And it started off by actually learning and using some of the programs that they had available. We had a dumpster for our street, and we really met everyone on our street. And then that led to block parties. And now I've got neighbors that will, you know, have my child over just to do tie-dyes, and they don't even have kids. And a lot of people have even come by and said, you know, your street is kind of magical, the way you've come together. And I owe a lot of that, I think, to Local Works and some of the projects and the programs that they have in place. I've seen enhancements to businesses, to homes. The loans have been fantastic. I know that, I'm personally looking at one for my house as well. But then it also comes to these events that have really allowed me to interact with other members, to celebrate the uniqueness that we have here. I know it's also driving some sales tax revenue to the other businesses, whether outside of even local works, like a Carnation Festival, what have you, like these events that we have here to celebrate our heritage and the people, I think are just so outstanding and such an important part of who we are and where we're gonna go and who we're gonna be in the future. So it just allows me to have a lot more connectiveness with Wheat Ridge, and I appreciate it. I started volunteering. I did part of the Friday Night Live, and I am now a current board member for Local Works because I really believe in what they're trying to do for everybody. And I really hope you continue to support them in the budget, and I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else need to speak on the budget? That's the only two that I have signed up. I don't want to ignore what we've discussed up here. It is time to go ahead and make a motion. Would somebody like to?
Madam Mayor, from a process standpoint, you have the motion, of course, on page 13 of the staff report, the last page of the staff report. And as for any other item, take the main motion, which is there, and if
That's
there
what I'm
are
wondering.
changes, additions, subtractions, those are properly handled as amendments to the main motion, so that they can be moved, seconded, and debated individually, up or down, and then you'll have a motion.
Okay. Mr. Pond?
Just a question before I read the motion. If in fact we're talking potentially about not a change to 2017, but a change to 2016 as initially discussed, could that happen as a consensus direction prior to the main motion or after?
Prior to or after, yes, you're absolutely right. It's certainly not a part of this, it's not a part of the motion on the 2017 budget. So I think Patrick would probably appreciate that being a separate action taken either right away or after, probably after, since you're in the middle of the 2017 budget.
Sure. So then I'm going to go ahead and read the main motion, and we
Thank
can hit the consensus afterward. I move to approve resolution number 47-2016, a resolution adopting the city budget and appropriating sums of money to various funds and spending agencies in the amount specified for the city of Wheat Ridge, Colorado for the 2017 budget year.
Second.
I'm sorry, is that Genevieve? Seconded by Genevieve Wooden. Okay, now, further discussion. This is on the main motion, which is to adopt the budget as it's presented, and then we'll do a consensus discussion afterward if there's something else we want to do. Everybody comfortable with that?
So, I guess the concerns I have is that there's some changes that I'd like to see made, obviously, in voting for this, and then coming back after that doesn't necessarily seem prudent to vote for the budget and then make changes after the fact.
No, procedurally, what you do is you actually make the changes now. You have now have a main motion, so it's appropriate now to make a motion to amend the main motion to change budget item, whatever, to read something else, and that gets seconded and debated. If that passes, then it's in the main motion, and you keep doing that until there are no more motions to amend.
Right. And my only clarification regarding the previous subject is it's at least as I heard it, was not really directing change to the 17 as much as to the 16. Now, if someone feels differently, then obviously they can make an amendment within this main motion.
Did you want to make that amendment?
Well, I mean, so specifically as it relates to the Carnation Festival, I think that we do need to consider that there was a increase above the ask of $60,000 made by the Carnation Festival Committee, and so I'd like to make an amendment to see that number, the base number provided to the Carnation Festival, be considered at $80,000, and make that an amendment to the budget to start with as a consideration.
So you're asking to amend the main motion to add a certain amount for the Carnation Festival?
Correct.
20,000? So you're moving to add.
Second.
And it's seconded by Ms. Duran. All right, let's have a discussion on that now. Mr. Matthews.
I'd like to hear a little bit more explanation from Councilman Urban, but I am reminded of someone that once thought if you want to add something to the budget, you better come to the table with a cut somewhere else. And I'm not sure I could support just an $80,000 or $20,000, whatever, add without going over ramifications to the entire budget. So
Well, sure.
On this motion, I'd just like to hear more explanation as to why it's more for us.
Oh, and I'd be willing to make a deduction as well. It's just I would like to add a if necessary, add a $20,000 amendment to the Carnation Festival line item, and if necessary, remove that from the Ridget 38th Public Events line item at $140,000.
Okay.
Is that a change to the motion? If the maker of the second agrees,
That's
then
necessary, but
Just to kind of clear this up, first, on a budget procedure, I guess I would have the question, does the balancing act have to happen right here, right now, or what are the other options to?
You can adopt the budget as amended, and then staff could go back and make those changes as necessary.
Including necessary deductive changes to create
Correct.
To create a balanced budget.
Correct. We could do that too. That's another option.
And then the option that potentially was just presented would be to actually create an add of 20 and a deduction of 20 within a single motion. If that's the case, your previous motion as seconded would have to be
It'd have to be changed
Yeah, just
as long as
vote on that amendment and then making a deductive amendment as the next one.
A little bit of background information too. If you remember from the study session, we mentioned since 2E passed and we have $4 million of funding for Anderson Park, we originally had $100,000 in the general fund budget for an Anderson Park water line replacement, which doesn't need to be in there. So you could use a portion of that $100,000 to offset this $20,000.
Okay, then wherever is appropriate, I'm just trying to figure out the least impact.
So you're saying that we would not have to necessarily have a deductive amendment as well?
It's still need an amendment to amend the budget to add 20,000 to
Add the
Carnation Festival.
20,000,
Yeah, and just and direct staff to balance the budget.
Okay,
Yeah,
I
I think it would be the easiest.
All right, still on this question, Ms. Hoppy.
So procedurally, because it's been made and it's been seconded, then we need to vote on that first, because we can't make changes to it now. So I just want to make sure that that's clear to everybody, that has to get voted on first.
So it was just to add.
Just to add the 20, which,
Soon staff's gonna go back.
right, which actually puts them at what their ask was last year, which was 80,000, right, Zach? And their ask this year was 96, so just so everybody knows.
All right, so we have a motion and a second to add 20,000 to the Carnation Festival amount that we're budgeting, bringing it to 80. Is there further discussion on that before we vote on that amendment?
Clear the
Or
board.
vote on
Okay, it's clear.
Mr. Matthews?
I move to amend the amendment that we approve the $20,000 for the Carnation Festival with the money being transferred in the budget from the Anderson Park water line.
Is that I'm just making sure that's in order, first of all.
yeah, I think it is. It needs to be seconded, and if it is, what you're doing is you're amending the mandatory motion to really add a required deduct to that motion. And that's proper motion if it's seconded.
Second.
All right. So now we have an amended amendment, add 20,000 to the budget to be balanced out by by staff to continue to balance the budget.
Well,
No, it's
specifically from the water line.
the water line.
Specifically from the Anderson Park water line.
Yeah.
Okay,
Was there a second on that?
By
we did have a
Councilmember
second.
Urban.
Okay.
Mr.
Urban.
Urban seconded. Please cast your votes there, unless we have more discussion. I don't think we do.
Motion carries 8-0.
Now you have the amendatory motion, which has been amended, and it's pending, and you need to vote on it.
The main motion.
The main amendment motion.
As amended,
Right.
right.
Which is now a motion to deduct, to add and to deduct.
Right.
That's now what's in front of you.
Do we need further discussion on this?
You can have it if you like, if there is any.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to be clear about that this motion is only to add 20,000, not deduct from anywhere.
No, it is to deduct.
No, this just got amended.
The one you're about to vote on.
The one they're about to vote on is now a hybrid, if you will. It is a motion to both add and deduct, because it got added to by Mr. Matthews' motion.
But deduct from the water line, not from the local works, whatever thing they were
From the
talking
water
about.
line
Or
add.
the Ridge at 38 thing.
Add to the Carnation Festival is now what's pending.
Okay. I'm
Going from line 603 to line 102.
Everybody comfortable? Then if we don't have any further discussion, we can go ahead and vote on that one. I don't think you're right.
Motion carries 8-0.
All right, now, would this be an appropriate time to have a discussion?
No, I think you keep asking if there are other amendments
Okay.
to the main motion.
Amendments then.
If there aren't, what you have is a motion to approve the budget, and that motion's been amended just in the one respect. And if there's no further discussion on that motion, you can vote on it.
That's what I thought. Okay. All right.
And
There was, though, a request to have a consensus discussion.
Right, but save that until you're done with the 2017 budget.
Oh.
That's what you're working on now.
Okay. Why? Okay. Then please. Yeah, that's what yeah, it's throwing me too. We still have then the main motion that we need to vote on. And discussion.
Discussion on that.
All right. Mr. Matthews.
I do have actually a lot of changes that I would like to make to the main motion, to the budget, but I don't think this is really the proper forum for me to bring them forward. I would apologize to the citizens because I'm probably tardy in this, but I've now completed 1 year on the board and I've gone through a business cycle. And I promise you I will be much better prepared to look into all the corners next year. But I just think we had time at the study sessions whenever, so I'm not going to bring forth a laundry list at this time to amend the balanced budget. And I've just made my comment, if we add, we ought to subtract and not add any more to it, and I'll quit at that.
Okay. Anyone else?
I guess, the concerns I have regarding the local works events, and specifically related to the $140,000 for the Ridge at 38th public events, the $140,000 is a tremendous amount of money for specifically for events that claim to have a tremendous amount of volunteers behind that. But then when I look at the volunteer energy that is spent on that, those are volunteer opportunities that may be taking away from other worthwhile volunteer organizations within the city. And I've heard from community groups that would love to participate in community opportunities and events like that, but could barely afford to participate in events like that or otherwise enjoy the kind of exposure that these types of events might afford them, but for the expenses that some of these events might cost them in some ways. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is if we're going to be spending $140,000 on Ridge at 38th public events, then we should be leveraging those events to the hilt to as fundraisers for every single nonprofit in the city, in such a way as to, if not the businesses that are on 38th, then encouraging people to be shopping on 38th, obviously. But it just seems like I've heard from various different nonprofit organizations that would love nothing more than to participate in some of these types of fundraisers or these types of events, but are unable to because they can't afford the entry fee or the sponsorship fee that is being charged of the vendors that are participating in these types of programs. So I guess if we're going to move forward with some of these types of opportunities, that we consider how we tie in or provide some of our local nonprofit partners with a showcasing opportunity or a nonprofit row or some way to make these events an opportunity for us to, and it may be that the Carnation Festival is a good place for this to happen, where we make it part of that as a fundraiser for the Feed the Future program, but do it in such a way that we're leveraging these types of events so that we're fundraising for these other types of organizations, because that's a concern that I've seen. And to me, it just seems like $447,000 for Local Works is a heck of a lot of money to not have any other bids for that type of work to be done, as well as to be claiming the significant amount of volunteer work that's being leveraged on top of that. And if it's such a great benefit, why can't we have folks pay a membership fee to participate in Local Works as sort of a social club in some way, or as a member, as a part of a party pass or some other type of group effort to participate in some of these types of events, or you get sort of a festival pass or something like that, to where you get to pay to play, because that to me is sort of shows that shows the real numbers of some of these events, which is also a concern of mine, and that's a taboo topic to discuss around here. But when you look at some of these events, the true numbers of people that are actually attending some of these events is disconcerting, because I don't know that we're seeing thousands upon thousands of people at some of these events. It may be, I just want to make sure that we are seeing some real results out of the $140,000 that we're going to be spending on Ridge at 38th local events, and how much in tax revenue we're going to get back on the $140,000 we're spending. I don't know. So those are my concerns. I know that the votes are there to fund it fully, but I would caution us against going forward with this without some sort of consideration for leveraging these types of events to the benefit of other nonprofits, because Local Works has had sort of run-of-the-mill for so long. So, thank you.
Okay. Ms. Hoppy. It was like a motion, or, what is he? Need something specific? Okay. Ms. Hoppy, did you want to add something?
This is discussion time, right?
Right.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I absolutely hear what Mr. Urban's saying. I would like to just point out that the $140,000 is for the holiday lighting event, the Criterium, the Ridge Fest, and the Trunk or Treat. So that's 4 events at $140,000, and we just gave Carnation Festival, which I absolutely adore, also $80,000, plus then we're going to give it another about $35,000 in kind, so overtime and city fees and stuff like that. And at the Carnation Festival, I run a dunk tank there, and we pay for our spot there just like everybody else does. We pay for our insurance, which is really expensive. So I think it would be really nice for all of these event, to be able to come up with some sort of nonprofit, like you said, Zach, some sort of nonprofit row where, you know, we're out there trying to do some fundraising, and when we're $800 in the hole before the first softball goes, it's a hard one. So, and that's not just us, that's anybody who's out there doing fundraising. So I think that it'd be nice for, you know, these are 5 large events we have in our community that are really amazing for our community. And I think that if we could put some sort of nonprofit into that, then I'd appreciate that. So if you guys are listening, committee heads for those, I don't necessarily want to be on your committee. You do a lot of really amazing work, but I would really appreciate it if you'd hear that suggestion.
Okay. Ms. Davis.
I would just like to add to that as well. I agree. I think that, you know, in some of these events, the more we can get our community involved in, if it's a portion of their fundraising. And I guess my question is or my comment would be is, I'm not sure that anyone's been turned away. And I guess I want clarification from Mr. Urban. Is it just that they want to participate and they don't know how to be a part of it? Or, and then maybe what we could do is get them the contacts that they need? Because I don't know, I don't want it to seem as it's exclusive, because I do think that that's one thing we want to be is inclusive. So have you suggested or to go to Local Works and asked to participate? Because I do know the several events that I went to, there were definitely opportunities for fundraising types of programs and places to go. So that's, I just want to make it that I don't think that anyone's being excluded. I think we just need to get those folks with the right people to be included. Have you, I guess, based off of your expression, I mean, have you?
It's a matter of other people who have come to me and said that they have not been able to participate in some of these events either because of the sponsorship costs or the way that the events are structured, that these nonprofits have not been able to participate.
Okay, because I just know like some booth rentals was like $25, so.
Yeah, that's sort of throwing me. Yeah, please let's have some discussion.
Permission to ask a question of somebody in the audience?
We have some Local Works people here. Perhaps we need some clarification on whether there are some costs involved.
Ms. Disney, are you aware of any fee for charitable organizations to participate in Local Work?
I think what Mr. Urban is referring to are sponsorship fees, but if somebody wants to come to an event and have a booth, it's $25. Even then, I don't even know if we charge nonprofits. So if they're coming to you saying, I want to be a sponsor, but I can't afford $10,000 or $2,000, well, that's going to be the same. No matter who the organization is doing an event for fundraising, you have to have sponsorships. That must be what they're talking about. But if they want to put a booth at Ridge Fest or at the Criterium, we always have that available, and I think it's $25, so it's not cost prohibitive. And if they're a nonprofit, I'm pretty sure if they asked, we wouldn't charge them, we'd waive the fee. We're not ruthless in that regard, but it does cost a lot of money to put these events on. And there are thousands of people that attend them. I don't know that I've ever seen you at one of our events, but there are thousands of people that come. So
I've been to plenty, ma'am.
So there's charges for sponsorships, and a sponsorship allows what?
Well, you get your name on the banner. It's a way to get publicity.
Okay.
But typically, it's like at the Carnation Festival. They have people that do sponsorships there. It's the same kind of thing. You pay money, then you get your name on the banner. You get publicity that way.
Okay.
That's how it works.
Did you want to ask another question?
Question. But for a booth, does Local Works provide the tables and the
No. Usually in that situation, the vendor or the participant brings their own.
So a charitable group could go to one of these events and for $25 they could solicit money or make people aware of their charity.
We have a lot of groups that have done that.
Okay. Oh, we have another question, if you don't mind.
Christine,
Ms.
is there
Turner.
different levels of sponsorship?
Yes.
What do they range?
And it depends on the event. Our bigger events like the Criterium, if you're going to be a presenting sponsor, I think that's $10,000. But we have some that are as small as $250 and $500. You don't get the same level of exposure, of course, because that wouldn't be fair to the people who are spending more money. But even then, I don't think that's cost prohibitive. And I know Trunk or Treat, I know that at the lighting ceremony that's coming up, I think we've had sponsorship levels there for $250.
So it can range anywhere between $250 and $10,000, depending on the level of sponsorship you want to do.
Right.
And can you also tell me, I don't know if you could tell me or the city, but has the city done in-kind donations as far as the police, like they do for the Carnation Festival for all 4 of these events?
We
Do
have
we know what that
security.
totals?
I'm not prepared to tell you what
maybe
that
Patrick.
costs. I don't have those numbers.
Yeah, I don't believe we've been tracking that the same way as we do for the Carnation Festival. I think it's definitely not as much as the Carnation Festival for a 2-day event like that. I don't know if Scott and the chief could speak to
Just an idea of what it does for.
type of response staff support we provide.
I think this year for the Criterium was the largest amount of police that we had. And that was because they had the Brew Fest in a larger area. But typically, there's not a lot of police.
Not compared to Carnation Festival, correct?
But there is
There is
in-kind
some.
donation from the city for all 4 events. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Mr. Matthews, did you want to ask a question of our?
I'm not sure which way it has to go, but with regards to specific
Well,
2020.
okay.
I think the question probably needs to be asked. We spent a lot of time on this, and the people, our citizens, realize that there's $500,000 that we give to the local works every year. I have, I guess, 2 questions. I've got a budget here, Local Works proposed 2017 budget, and I don't see any money in there for overhead. And so, do you have?
There
a
is
couple of
money in
questions.
there.
Well, I just don't see
Okay.
salaries, office space, specifically as a line item in here, and I don't know where that's at. Do you have income from anyone else as a question? And the other question I had is, what controls does the city have if once we hand over $500,000 that the money's going to get spent where we anticipated it was going to be spent?
I'll answer that last question first. We invoice, we have them invoice us per event or per program, and we pay by invoice. And those invoices do include the staff time to run those programs. You mentioned the $500,000 budget. 50,000 of that is for business and home loans. 140,000 is for the events, but we don't give them 140,000 on January 1. They invoice those over a certain period of time throughout the year when the event's over, and they have a itemized invoice for us.
Do we know what your current overhead is?
I don't have that number in front of me. We have an annual report that you can see, and I'm sure if Britta were here, she could give you that answer off the top of her head because she's the one that's prepared that budget. I wasn't prepared to go into that much detail tonight, so I don't have that with me. I'm very sorry.
Well, thank you. I appreciate
It's
your.
usually pretty readily available.
Right. And
online.
and
It's
anytime
online.
you want to come in and sit down, she's more than happy to go over those numbers.
I
with you.
appreciate your candor. That's fine. Thank you.
Ms. Wooden?
I have several comments, and I'll just say up front that I'm a former board member from Wheat Ridge 2020, which is now called Local Works. And the events that are being discussed bring people to our city. So they're bringing people to look at our city not only for potential future residents, but to buy things while they're here for the event, just bringing people to our city. And so these are really important for how we're going to create a community and what kind of community we want to be. And they're not simple and easy to put on. When you think about the Criterium and you're shutting down streets and you're bringing professional athletic associations to our city, there's a lot involved with that. And I would suggest that if someone is very concerned about it, that we look at some of the other events in other cities and look at how much it costs to put on those. Can you imagine what it costs to put on Taste of Colorado in downtown Denver? Now, obviously, that's going to cost a lot more than it does to put on something in Wheat Ridge, but it's the same type of thing. Why do you want to put on a festival? Why do you want to do these things? It's to provide entertainment, community, bring business, create a thriving community, and that's why you're doing it. And that's why I support Local Works. I support the work they do. I support the events they're doing. And they do have a lot of volunteers that help. And these people that get up and talk and say, I volunteer for Local Works, they do that because they want to be involved. They want to be part of their community. And they're choosing that. They're choosing to be a volunteer there. As far as the audit of the Local Works, they are audited every year. It's a very expensive audit. It's all online. So if anyone wants to see the budget or the audit of Local Works, they're welcome to either contact them directly and look at it, or it is online. As far as our budget this year and what we're discussing right now, if you look back, I don't know, 6, 7 years to when Local Works was first getting these festivals and these events started, there was much, much lower participation than there is now. So now we're getting more participation not only from our own residents, but from people coming in from out of the city. So it is working. The plan is working as to what we want to do as far as create business, create traffic to our city, and that type of thing. And as far as the other items that were discussed regarding sponsorships, it is true that in any event, there's different levels of sponsorships. And it is true that if you want a booth, there's usually a small fee, no matter if you're a nonprofit or if you're a for-profit business. And I know that's true for the Carnation Festival and other things too. So I fully support Local Works and the work they're doing and their requests in this budget.
Any other discussion that might lead to an amendment or a change?
I was going to ask if it's possible for our city treasurer to put a separate type of a line item on the website as far as, okay, so here's what we give Local Works, and then just kind of breaking down where it goes, same with the outside agency, just to make it a little bit more transparent. Would that be difficult to do?
Well, right now, there's the 2016 budget online under miscellaneous reports. That's what money was allocated to Wheat Ridge 2020 or Local Works by line item. I don't have the information about how much they've spent because that's within their budget. But we have how much the city allocated for each project. So what we'd have to do is take that report and then modify it. And when the city gets an invoice, then to show that on the report as well. So budgeted $140,000 for events, and then the city paid out $140,000. Right now, we just show the revenues to Local Works for that year. So it would
But
be
not the expenditures on what we give.
No, we don't have the expenditures because that's their spending the money. But I guess we could do that. But basically, if Patrick gave us the when they got the invoice, that we had that amount.
I just think that would help and give folks a better understanding. I mean, they realize a lot of great things Local Works does, but I think it would really just kind of help with that, thought of, oh boy, there's something going on here, or this isn't clear. I just think it would really clarify a lot and would just answer a lot of questions for folks. So, thank you.
Ms. Davis?
I think that's a very valid point, but I think if we start doing that, then we're going to need to do it for the Carnation Festival, I think so I think we do that, or, every year, or, I know Local Works budget's available online, so that they do spell out their expenses so I just think that if we're going to itemize each one of their expenses, then the same should go for any one person, and I don't know if that's getting to the point that it's a little bit, we're creating, more government and expenses in the whole process. My thought.
Yeah, I'm just trying to show accountability for what we give, not just Local Works. I'm not pointing my finger just at them. The Carnation Festival also, an outside agency. I think those are the 3 top ones that we give money to, and I don't think it would be a lot of work
Oh, and it's all there.
You
It's
know,
all
it's all there.
It's
It's
all in
just
the budget
making it
message.
accessible.
I mean, it's pretty accessible at this point. It's all in the budget message and pretty line item out.
Well, whatever we can do just to kind of help that.
And I
would be
think
great.
each group has had their budgets that they post and they present to us as well that shows their expenses, so.
Mr. Pond?
Well, I'll just quickly touch on this and then just a general discussion topic related to the budget. I support where we're at with this, and certainly support the work that's been done, you know, by Local Works, by our citizens participating as volunteers, and putting their time into it. And we hear it time and time again. I think that's really important. And I guess to just pivot to the general budget and talk about it, you know, thank you to the staff and everyone who's come and commented through public comment for various meetings that we've had. It's obviously this is a very lengthy process and a detailed process, and obviously we're kind of getting into the weeds a little bit right now. I just want to step back and say what's great about it is that we're really talking in almost all of our discussions tonight are about, you know, how do we invest for the things that we want in our community? And generally, I'm not hearing disagreement that we want to invest in our community, that we want, you know, good things for our citizens, and, you know, including events and including taking care of people who might need food, et cetera. And so, you know, I do think there's been some great topics that have been brought up that obviously we can roll into the discussion next year. And as Mr. Matthews alluded, in a timely fashion through this process, we can kind of get to some of these things and in study sessions and some other things like that. As it stands right now, I support this budget and am very thankful for the work that everyone's put in to get here.
Thank you, George.
Madam Mayor.
Any other comments? Yes.
Just one last item regarding Local Works as it relates to the neighborhood revitalization strategy update. I know from prior experience that the prior neighborhood revitalization strategy and study utilized NeighborWorks to a great extent to carry out that strategy. And so I think it would be prudent for us to utilize an agency or an entity other than the entity that we may be seeking to execute the strategy that we're looking to implement, just from a structural standpoint. It doesn't, from my perspective, from a procurement perspective, doesn't make sense that we would ask an entity that we would be looking to in the future to be implementing strategies to be coming up with a strategy that we want to implement. It's sort of like the fox guarding the hen house, and to me it sort of begs the question. We're paying an agency $27,500 to come up with a strategy that then results in them coming up with a strategy that then will say, oh, we're the best agency for the job. And so that to me is imprudent procurement strategy, and just in a very general sense. And I think in a structural way, it would make sense that we select an agency for the neighborhood revitalization strategy update that is independent from Local Works to look at the neighborhood revitalization strategy in such a way as to determine that, yes, this is where our entire sort of bench of outside agency players and partners and community regional partners can participate in this process, as opposed to just one player saying, yep, this is the strategy that we're going to go with, and oh, lo and behold, we're the best team to run with it after it all gets said and done. So that would be my main concern with having Local Works run that strategy for us, because it's going to result in us being sort of beholden to the strategy that they inevitably come up with.
Pointing at me, Mayor. Would you like me to say something?
I think that you probably have a response
Well, I can just speak to what the budget request was from Local Works for this amount. They did request $27,500 to help with an update to the NRS if council so chooses to go there. We haven't made that final decision, but their role in it would be, is what their intent is, to be a partner with the city in helping with the community outreach process, to hold focus groups, community engagement meetings, work with council members at district meetings to find out what the community wants, not to develop a strategy, was at least.
They're not going to create the strategy.
No, that would have to come from another agency that we'd probably have to bring in or hire or figure out if we could do it internally.
Okay. Ms. Wooden.
And I would just like to comment that Local Works, formerly Wheat Ridge 2020, was formed out of the NRS. So the entity was formed as a result of the NRS, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So Local Works was formed out of the NRS, and they are assisting our citizens, they're assisting our city. It's not secret. You can come to meetings. Everybody's welcome at all the events. So there's a huge openness about the organization. If you would like to know more about it, please call and ask, and I'd be happy to connect you to someone. If anybody, the public or anyone at this table, is interested, I'd be happy to connect them. And I would like to call for the vote.
Okay, I believe you're begging the question is the term. Are we ready for the vote? I have not heard another.
That's a motion that requires a second.
We have that. Yeah, we have that second.
Call the motion question.
Oh, no, we're asking.
If she's formally calling the question.
Right.
Yeah.
Are you formally calling the question?
Or if you're informally saying,
Okay.
then it does not require a second.
Right. So can I call for it?
You can ask if there's any more comments.
Are there any more comments or suggestions that might lead to an amendment? I don't believe there is. I believe everybody has said it. Okay. Then we do need to.
Motion's been made and seconded.
It's been made and seconded.
Yes,
We
just
really,
need to
the
vote.
discussion is over and it's time to vote.
Yes.
Motion carries 8-0.
All right.
Madam Mayor, may I ask for the consensus
Please.
from the council on that other item?
Yes.
Thank you. I'd like to request a consensus that I ask, or we ask staff to go back in the 2016 budget and see if there are ways to allocate $4,500 to the backpack program from this year's budget, if there's a place that we could reallocate that.
Second.
It's a consensus. You just want to go ahead with a consensus on it? Go ahead and just show your hands, or anybody want to add anything to it? Nope. All right.
Is that
So the
6 to 2?
consensus is strong enough to go forward?
6 to 2.
Right. With that, crap, we lost track of where we're at. Item 4. Ms. Durant. Ms. Durant.
Title, Resolution Number 48-2016, a resolution levying general property taxes for the year 2016 to help defray the costs of government for the city of Wheat Ridge, Colorado for the 2017 budget year. Issue, levying property taxes for the 2016 fiscal year.
Well, there's no impact. Staff, help?
Yeah. Right. Let's see, where are we? Oh.
Item 4.
Sorry. Ms. Geyer is here to
So
present.
each year, when you adopt the budget, you also have to certify the property tax mill levy, which is 1.83 mills. And so that is projected based on our net assessed value of all our properties to generate approximately $853,000 in revenue, property tax revenue in 2017.
Any questions of staff? No? Public comment? I don't believe I had any come up. Then a motion is in order.
Is that a raise of 1.83, or is that where we were currently at?
No, that's what we're currently at.
It doesn't say so specifically, so I'm answering for.
Yeah, we're on, Tabor does not allow city council to raise the mill levy without going to the vote of the people.
Okay. I did ask for a motion.
I move to approve resolution number 48-2016, a resolution levying a mill levy of 1.830 on general property taxes for the year 2016 to help defray the costs of government for the city of Wheat Ridge, Colorado for the 2017 budget year.
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Wooden. Please cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0.
All right, moving on to item number 5. Ms. Wooden, would you please read that?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is resolution number 50-2016, a resolution approving an amended and restated development agreement for the Fruitdale School property. Would you like me to read the issue?
Yes, please. Wow, that's a lot.
Okay, how about the first paragraph?
Yeah, that'd be great.
The Wheat Ridge Housing Authority has owned the historic Fruitdale School since April 2011. The authority gave thorough consideration of various options to redevelop or reuse the property on their own in their capacity as a housing authority. Ultimately, they determined no independent WRHA project would be financially feasible or prudent. Since early 2014, the authority has been actively seeking a private developer partner.
Thank you. Let's have a staff report.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Ken Johnstone, Community Development Director, also the Executive Director of the Wheat Ridge Housing Authority. Housing Authority is considering a similar item at tomorrow afternoon's meeting, their regular business meeting. So we are pleased to be here tonight to present to Council for your action by resolution a final version of the amended and restated development agreement for the Fruitdale School public-private partnership to reuse that historic school building on West 44th Avenue. Council initially approved a development agreement back on February 22nd of this year, which provided a variety of funding sources from the city in the form of grants and loans for this rehabilitation and adaptive reuse project. The initial commitment was to provide up to $2.1 million in a short-term loan and $470,000 in a one-time grant. Essentially, those numbers have not changed. Kind of the terms of how they would be dispersed or managed has changed somewhat as the project has come kind of close to the finish line here, and that's really why we're contemplating this amended and restated development agreement. The project itself remains the same. It remains 16 loft-style housing units in the historic, rehabbed historic school building. They're a mix of 2- and 3-bedroom units, all kind of unique floor plans given the unique character of the building. And it also includes the carriage house, or the caretaker's house that's on the front portion of the lot. That too will be a residential unit. 5 of the units will be designated as affordable, subject to the terms of the home funding, the federal home funding. That's another critical component of the project funding. The financing of this project, as it was summarized in the staff report, has always been challenging. As Ms. Wooden noted, the Housing Authority, Wheat Ridge Housing Authority, took a hard look at this several times in terms of determining the feasibility of some sort of a housing project with the Housing Authority in the lead, and each of those times determined that that was not really remotely financially feasible, that the gap in the funding for the project and the pro forma was just much too significant. So the financing for the project continues to be complex, and complex for a reason, because any one of these sources that is part of the project really is critical for the project to keep moving forward. So there are loans, long-term loans and shorter-term loans from both the Wheat Ridge Housing Authority and from the city. There are federal home funds in the amount of $680,000, which is a significant portion of the project funding, and we're
appreciative of the county's commitment to the project to dedicate that amount of money to a small project like this that they're fully behind. So those funds are committed. There are state and federal historic and solar tax credits that total around $2 million, another critical component of how the city loans in part get paid back. And of course there is a developer equity and a commercial bank loan as well that kind of round out the various funding sources that are intended to get this project built. The previously approved development agreement back in February of this year did contemplate that a final project pro forma would be approved by council before we actually closed on the sale of the property to the Fruitdale School Properties, which is an affiliate of HEI, Herman Ely Investments. And Jim and Susan are here in the audience today, and we'll make some comments here after I'm done. So this meeting before council was anticipated in that previous agreement. The only change is, given kind of the nuances and the deal points that mirror the new pro forma, it really made sense to kind of amend the whole agreement and not just try and present an addendum to the agreement, but really to amend and restate the agreement, and that's what we proposed council take action on tonight. If approved tonight and approved by the Housing Authority tomorrow night as well, closing on the property is tentatively scheduled for December 6th and possibly actually sooner. The developer is anxious to move forward for a variety of reasons related to some of the project funding sources, notably the solar installation that needs to be approved by certain dates pursuant to the Excel requirements. And they're eager to get under construction and get additional environmental remediation underway so that they can start the real interior remodel and site improvements to be able to hit the market as a rental project in an attractive time frame, which hopefully would be the fall of next year, probably in the September time frame, so as not to push that out into kind of the December, January time frame, which if you know rental housing is not a great time to hit the market with a new project. So that's really some of the goals of the timing of really trying to move forward really quickly if this gets approved and we can get to that closing on December 6th or sooner. We've provided you several updates along the way since February, most recently in some study sessions in October and November. Some of that new information that we updated you in October and November related to really just a more thorough understanding of the project, the pro forma, the financing, all the different aspects of the deal points, project costs, et cetera. I think we've been pleased to the extent that much of those deal points have remained substantially unchanged in terms of project costs, in terms of the kind of assumptions in terms of rents, and those rents have actually even gotten a little higher, which benefits the project pro forma. So most of those assumptions have been firmed up as we've gotten into more detail. We've also involved the tax accountants as well. We talked to this, so I won't belabor the point, but we talked to it at study session. Essentially the three grants, that being the home grant and previously the two city and Wheat Ridge Housing Authority grants, would have significant tax implications for the project that the pro forma didn't anticipate and really can't anticipate. It really makes the project infeasible. So those previously approved grants are becoming long-term loans. Another major kind of structural change to the project is there's significantly more asbestos abatement, unfortunately, that needs to be done. And really the costs associated with that, which are in the neighborhood of $200,000, are twofold. Some additional abatement has been identified with additional asbestos-containing materials. And then also some of the rules regarding how you can penetrate or disturb asbestos sources have changed, and therefore the construction costs surrounding some of the project costs have gone up as well in order to be compliant with applicable rules as it pertains to construction in relation to asbestos-containing materials. The sale of the state tax credits also have tax implications, and that really wasn't understood largely because that's a brand new program. This is really the first year that that's come into existence. It's a great $900,000 funding source for the project, but it's got $300,000 worth of tax implications that the project pro forma had to absorb. So that's another major deal point that we've kind of had to react to in looking at this final pro forma. One of the main changes, and a change to be certainly well aware of, is that the terms of the city's long and short-term loans have changed significantly, both in regards to what previously were grants and now are becoming longer-term loans, and then also what were to be fairly short-term loans, at least for the city, not so much for the housing authority, but the $2.1 million that was to be repaid mostly in years 2 and 3 will have to be paid out over a longer period of time, though a significant portion of that would be paid out in the first 18 months of the project upon the sale of the vast majority of the tax credits, but not quite all of them. When we briefed you most recently on November 7th, I think one of the most significant concerns perhaps we heard was concern whether and to what extent we would be going below the city's policy for cash reserves. The city has an adopted policy to maintain a 17% general fund cash reserves, and there, at least we heard some consternation with the potential that we'd go below that and potentially below that fairly significantly. So we heard that, and we've really tried to address that. And in fact, the draft agreement that's before you this evening for action would specifically not allow the city's funding commitments to take the city below that policy of 17% reserves. It's specifically addressed in the agreement that's before you. Just a few other kind of notable changes that have occurred since November 7th, trying to respond to your direction, and also just notable changes that have occurred in the deal structure since February 22nd. As I noted, the remaining balance on the city's $2.1 million loan that again used to be a shorter term payback in years 2 and 3, at least about 1.9 million of that, does have a portion of that would be paid out over a longer term of time. So there would presumably be approximately, until additional tax credits are sold, about $800,000 of outstanding amount on that loan that would be paid out over, up to 20 years. We have negotiated that money would accrue a 5% simple interest beginning early in the project after that initial repayment from the tax credits. After that repayment, interest would start accruing on any outstanding balance, and that would be due and payable later in the project life. Minimum annual equity payments on that outstanding balance of $12,500 would begin in year 3 and continue every year thereafter. The balance of the loan would be paid back in year 20, and if not, and this is another fairly significant deal point in the agreement that's been negotiated in the last several weeks, the property would in fact be transferred to the city free of any private debt. There still would be those long-term 35-year Wheat Ridge Housing Authority and city loans, but other than that, it would be free and clear of debt, and it would become a city or housing authority asset. I guess a city asset, actually. As I mentioned, the city's grant of $470,000 is being converted to a long-term loan. It had been suggested at the November 7th study session that could be for a term up to 40 years. We did negotiate that down to a term of 35 years, and again, we would be accruing interest. As is noted in the report from Economic and Planning Systems, and I'll introduce Andrew as well here, but that horizon for when that gets repaid is quite a ways out there, and so the present value of those dollars of repayment is not nearly as significant as just the numbers that you're looking at, but they still get repaid. They get repaid with interest, and it's real money, and that 35-year time frame. The terms of the long-term loan would be such that the interest wouldn't start accruing until year 20, but again, it would be 5% interest beginning at that time through year 35. Consistent with the previously approved agreement, the developer's cash-on-cash return is capped at 22%. Anything above that, and the pro forma does project that beginning in about I think, year 9, that's about $10,000 a year. That money would come back to the city to first pay back the city's loan. So that's another source of loan repayment that would start to occur to recover that outstanding $830,000. And that's, again, the worst case scenario. If more tax credits are sold between now and project completion, that $830,000 would go down by a couple $100,000 additional. And finally, the agreement does also include a waterfall structure such that upon a refinance or sale of the property that would occur sooner than 20 years, that there would be a waterfall whereby the city would essentially participate in the net proceeds from the sale of property after certain things are paid back, such as most notably the outstanding commercial bank loan of several $100,000 projected at that time. So those are some of the main, deal points in this agreement, and departures from both the November 7th discussion that we had with you, and then also, more importantly, the February 22nd agreement that Council approved and that we're operating under currently. We've reached a lot of milestones along the way. We gave you a multi-page memo about what those are, but it's been a long road to get here. We've appreciated the partnership with HEI. It's a challenging project, obviously a big decision for you to contemplate and act on tonight, but we look forward to answering your questions that you may have. I do want to invite Andrew Knutson with Economic and Planning Systems. Thanks for being here, Andy, on short notice. We've used Andrew on a number of occasions to kind of truth test public-private deals, just to make sure that there's a kind of another set of fiduciary eyes looking at the deal and making sure that we're eyes wide open in terms of the deal that we're getting into, and that it makes good sense for the city. So I'll turn it over to him, and then I know Jim, or perhaps Jim and Susan would like to make a few comments as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ken. Good evening, Council. I'm Andrew Knutson. I'm a principal with Economic and Planning Systems. We are a full-service land use economics consulting firm, and we've got 3 offices in California and 1 in Denver, and between the 4 offices, we cover the western part of the country. We have a total of 50 people, so it's, in the overall scheme of things, we're still pretty small. We help many communities, such as yourself, cities, counties, transit agencies, public entities that are trying to catalyze certain markets. And these markets are not performing to the degree that they can sufficiently attract capital of their own accord. And as a result, there's some need for public investment. And the challenge, and the scope of many of our services is to figure out how do public agencies be good stewards of their dollars and invest enough money, but not more than enough, to make deals happen. So that fine line, we spend a lot of time working with a lot of agencies on identifying where that fine line is. And that's what we've done over the course of several months, quite a few months, with Jim and his team as well as the staff. The most important thing to emphasize at the outset, and I'm in the middle of page 2 in our memo from EPS, is that any real estate investments are inherently risky. We've got entitlement risk, development risk, market risk, operating risk, and exit risk, all of which pose threats to a given deal that can, particularly in a partnership structure, affect the investments. So all of us should go in with our eyes wide open in terms of the dollars invested and the risks associated with those. The trick, ultimately, is to mitigate the risk as much as possible. And what we have tried to do, and let me just jump over to some of the considerations on page 3. And the first one I want to talk about is role as partner. And in this case, the city is taking on a significant amount of risk with a significant investment in the project. At $2.1 million, it is higher than any of the other partners in the deal. The primary loan comes in at 1.4, and the developer equity is $147,000. Part of the original term structure was to get the city in and out quickly, and getting out in the form of stopgap financing until the tax credit investor equity comes online is the goal. And Jim and his team has been working as I understand, extremely hard and successfully in getting tax credit investors signed up. So we have more, including one that was announced just today, of these tax credit investors who are in position to take the city out. And these tax credit deals, there's the paperwork associated with them, and the timing of the deal are such that it's fairly locked in, but then funds aren't available for 18 months plus or minus. But the risk, once the investors are committed, are relatively low. So, and this was similar to the February deal, where the city's in with a fair amount of money, but for a short period of time with relatively low risk. And we're getting back to those original terms relatively effectively. So that is good news, because otherwise the city does have a fair amount of investment in the deal, and with a 5% return is far lower than what most partners would get in a real estate partnership. So it's kind of, but with the exit strategy as currently stated, with the city getting out with the tax credit equity coming online in year 2 or sooner, it's a very good way to mitigate your risk. Other points are recourse. Ken mentioned this. The primary lender will be in a senior position for the first 20 years. The city doesn't have recourse in terms of getting access to the title until year 20, in which case the developer needs to refinance, pay off the city's obligation entirely. And if that doesn't happen, then at that point the city can take title to the asset. And it's important to note that the primary loan becomes the responsibility of the developer. And that, according to the pro forma, is just under $500,000. So the developer has a lot of incentive to make the refi work. Also, it's important to note that we do, built into this deal, the developer suggested putting in a bit of a, accumulating enough cash by year 20, $75,000, to buy down the interest rate at the then current rates to make a refi feasible. So there's things like that in the terms that should make, should enable all of it to go according to plan, with some insurances, if you will, to enable it to hit those targets. I should mention, we do this kind of pro forma feasibility analysis frequently for a lot of different agencies. We use an industry standard of escalation factors of 3% for costs and 2% for revenues. Therefore, over time, there's enough buffer on the cost scenario to ensure that there's adequate money in the deal to cover associated costs with the project, and that revenues aren't overstated. And we've used that combination of 2 and 3 for a very long time in a lot of different markets, and except during the Great Recession when no one was doing any deals anyway, it has been proven out to be a reasonable set of terms. This project, the developer has suggested a 1.2% appreciation annually on revenues. So we think the Denver market is stronger than that. Obviously, there's cycles. I mean, we can't just look to the last 5 years, which have been almost double digit the entire time, because of the previous 5 years, there was catastrophic contraction going on. So over time, 2% is reasonable, and the project does have some buffer with these relatively low assumptions on revenue. Actual revenues, based on our firm's experience, should be higher and are likely to be higher, providing, again, a little bit of a buffer. And we do have the profit distribution. That was something that came in as part of the negotiations prior to February, but it is good because if the project does do particularly well, we are bullish on markets like Wheat Ridge. We think that Wheat Ridge, given its position in the metro area as a whole, will be subject to more pressure in terms of demand, and prices will go up. There are a handful of communities like Wheat Ridge that we think are really going to take off. And so, at any rate, in the event that the project is a beneficiary of that overall market pressure, the city can participate in that with a 50-50 split of profits over 22% on a cash-on-cash basis. So, all in all, there are terms woven into the overall project developer agreement that put the city in a reasonably good position. It is not risk-free, and all of us have to be aware of that going into the deal. But it does, in our view, strike a good balance between achieving public policy goals like catalyzation of a market, attracting capital. I mean, in our view, any community that is attracting capital is succeeding, and the communities that aren't are losing their position, and oftentimes it accelerates in terms of the other peer communities getting a competitive advantage and a better position all the way around for jobs and housing. So these qualitative metrics, if you will, in terms of attracting capital, getting a mixed income redevelopment, historic asset stabilization, those things are certainly, as with any community that gets involved in a public-private partnership, really the goals of what it's all about. And the financial position is mitigated reasonably. At one point during the conversations, and I'll just close with this, I said, you know, Jim, I'm not sure you will find another city willing to provide you with terms like this. And he said, any municipality will be tough to find a developer that is willing to invest this kind of time structuring the various elements and tax credit, equity, grants, all the different layers in the capital stack that actually are making this deal happen. And I agreed. It is a good match in that few projects of this complexity will get the patience of a developer like Jim and his team. And the project definitely does need subsidies and does need a public partner from both the city and the housing authority to make it happen. So with that, I'm available to answer questions, but that's our analysis.
Thank you, Jim. Now we have an opportunity to ask staff as well as Mr. Knudsen. Andrew, his name is.
There may be some other.
I think we have the HEI would like to speak, give a quick presentation too.
Thank you, Patrick. And it's a pleasure to be back in front of you, Madam Mayor and council members. I will be brief because I know you've absorbed a lot tonight as well as through previous meetings. We're also very excited to be here tonight. It has been an enormous amount of work, and boy, oh boy, if I knew now, or if I knew then what I know now, we probably wouldn't be standing here tonight. But we are patient folks, and we're dedicated, and we'd like to think we're good team members that ultimately underpromise and overdeliver. We anticipate, if you are so kind to approve everything tonight, to do just that. We're going to overdeliver a wonderful project for all of you, as well as the citizens of Wheat Ridge. Just a moment to explain why this has been such an enormous amount of work and so difficult. There was some talk about the delicate balance of all the funding sources, and that has been one of the most complex challenges that we've ever faced. It's still difficult, but we feel like we've wrestled all the players into final lineup position. With your approval tonight and the Housing Authority's approval tomorrow, we'll be able to sign all the various financing agreements over the next week and close on schedule and start construction on schedule. The tax credits just themselves, we've contacted more than 50 groups over the last year. Some extremely intensive negotiations, big banks, medium-sized organizations, high net worth individuals that this is just a in-between package of tax credits to get taken care of. As Patrick mentioned, as Andrew mentioned, we got another commitment today in writing from a very reliable, solid partner that we've had at our Hangar 2 property for many years. We are in active negotiations with many of further potential tax credit investors for the final couple $100,000 that's left on the table, and we're very optimistic that by the time we finish construction, we'll have those spoken for. So I believe, and I say this honestly to you tonight, that this package in front of you represents a worst case picture. We do think we're going to do better than this. As Andrew mentioned, there's some conservatism in these numbers. We really think that reputations are hugely important. We stake ours on this one. If you go forward with us as your partner, we'll be very happy to hold up our end of the bargain. And we think at the end of the day, you'll be much more satisfied at the end of the process than you are even today. A couple of other little points. This will be the preservation of one of the most important historic buildings in the city. It's been really an important building for many people in the community for decades. It will be the start of a redevelopment catalyst to this part of 44th Avenue corridor. There's many opportunities along there, but as was mentioned, it takes some seed capital to get it going. And I think another important thing to mention is that on the risk component, all of the various risk things have been minimized down to the point where we're ready to go. The home funds, they were going to be funded over 2 years, $200,000 and $400,000, total of $640,000. They have upped that to a one-year funding of $680,000, primarily because we're ready to go. This package of financing won't be around in the future, not just the home funds, but the Excel money, which has been incredibly hard to keep them on the table as a financial partner. The last thing I would say is that when we get this done for the entire team, and I speak not only for our private side team, but for all of you on the public side that have been so great as partners so far, this will be a great success story. It will get a lot of press coverage. It already has through the years, but everybody likes to write about success. And I think that publication and that coverage will further enhance the ability of Wheat Ridge to become a desirable place, further enhance economic redevelopment in this part of the city as well as the city as a whole. I think you're sending the right message to a lot of people. So we'd be happy to take any questions, and we're happy to be here as your partner.
Thank you, Jim. Now we have three of them to whom we can ask questions. Council? Starting out with Ms. Hobby.
Yeah, I'd really just like to say thank you for all of the work that everybody's gone through to bring this project kind of to the table. A couple of things I want to just, some bullet points. It says in our memo that when you were here in the study session November 7th, we were talking about how you had 45% of your federal tax credits remaining, and now you are at a place where 22.8% of those have been verbally committed to, or letter of intent is pending. So that's some more good news. Also, the loan part of the 2.1 and some change, 1.2, 61% of that will be paid back in the first 18 months. And so I think that's important when we're having these discussions and this information is kind of buried in these paragraphs of information, and it's hard to kind of point those, pull those points out. But I think it's important to understand that 61% of that will be paid back in the first 18 months. And then the remaining balance will be paid back within 20 years at a 5% interest. Another part is that the Housing Authority was originally going to grant, we were originally going to give them $400,000. Now this grant has turned into a long-term loan, meaning we were going to give the money away, but now we're getting the money back, and it'll start earning 5% also at 14 years. Another point to bring up is that the city's long-term loan that was supposed to be a grant, or that is now a long-term loan, was also going to be a grant. So that's $470,000 that we were going to give away that we're actually getting back, and again at 5%. So while we're waiting a little bit longer on some of our money, we're making money for it. And so I would like to say that I support this project. I'm looking forward to seeing it carry on, and I'm looking forward to it being open by next fall. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Wooden.
I actually have a question. Where does this leave our housing authority? After looking at these loans, where does that leave our housing authority?
And the Housing Authority chair is here tonight as well, Janice Thompson. If the mayor's so inclined, she may like to make some comments as well. But the Housing Authority deal points have not, fundamentally changed. The years where they started getting paid back on their loan were always further out in the pro forma than the city's payback was. They continue to be further out, and further out by a couple more years. So not a significant change, but something that'll be reviewed by the Housing Authority tomorrow afternoon and presumably acted upon in terms of their consideration of this amended and restated development agreement. To answer your question, the Housing Authority has expended about $300,000 to date in terms of acquisition, a new roof, and various other things. They would next be contemplating a $400,000 loan and a $170,000 grant. That will leave them with between $50,000 and $100,000 in the bank. So basically just enough money to kind of carry operating costs for the next several years in terms of an annual audit, an accountant, that sort of thing. We also bill staff time, at least a nominal amount of staff time to that Housing Authority budget as well. So that's where they'll be financially, assuming this project moves forward.
And how does the city support the Housing Authority? I mean, is there a way we can help replenish their funds? I mean,
Historically, the city provided seed money in the amount of $500,000. There was an opportunity, as I understand it, to take advantage of a matching grant at the state level. The city did that and created a housing authority and seeded it with $500,000, which was matched equally by the state. That was really their seed money. Over the years, they've gotten money chiefly from CDBG and home funds that are administered by Jefferson County. But there's not an ongoing funding source that they can rely on or do rely on.
I support this project, and I think the developer's been super patient in going through this process. And I know the Housing Authority has been a huge partner in this also. And so I support the Housing Authority and what they're doing, but I do want to look at going forward that the Housing Authority has some funds to do projects and to move forward. And I would very much hope that council and the city can look at how we can help replenish the Housing Authority so that they can do more projects going forward.
Is there other work that the Housing Authority would be doing if this funding was still in place?
Housing Authority has typically been, very much project-based and not a property manager. So unlike many housing authorities that, own and manage affordable housing projects, that's not been the business model for the Wheat Ridge Housing Authority. Really what they've done over the years through a variety of funding sources is acquire, rehabilitate, and sell homes, duplexes. They did one project that was condominiums or townhomes, and they sell them to eligible low-income buyers. So, they transform houses kind of one house at a time and then sell those back as home ownership opportunities for a lower moderate income individual or family.
And that market is probably pretty barren at this point.
It's become challenging. I think the economics of doing that have always been a little bit challenging, just to the extent that it's not a profit-making enterprise, nor should it be. But they lose a fair amount of money in acquiring those properties, selling them, and then selling them at a price point that's affordable to an eligible buyer. So on a per unit basis, it hasn't been. There's certainly some expense to it. It's just darn hard in the last couple of years to find the properties. So at least for the time being, it's been challenging in Wheat Ridge to probably keep moving that. But that said, there's a variety of other things that the Housing Authority could do to make a positive impact on the community as it relates to housing. And they're due to conduct some strategic planning this year, knowing that they're going to be mostly out of money. But wanting to remain vital and active and contributing to the community, they're going to, think hard about what their role should be, what other funding sources they could go after, whether that be from the city or from other funding sources such as CDBG and Home or other sources that they could look at to pursue funding.
Thank you. I think Mr. DiTilio wanted to say something.
I just wanted to address the question too that Ms. Wooden had, is that the city did donate $500,000 to the Housing Authority in 2000, and then with that money we applied for a Colorado housing grant for $500,000, and then we also received $100,000 from the stadium refund tax. That was one-time refund to the cities when the stadium was built for the Invesco Field. So really the Housing Authority has been operating on $1.1 million since 2000, 16 years. And like Mr. Johnson had mentioned, buying and selling property, bringing that revenue in and using CDBG funds, and the Jefferson County Housing Authority as their contractor manager has actually kept that group going, and they've rehabbed single family, duplex, and multifamily. And the multifamily was real prevalent in the first few years because we could actually buy those as apartments, convert them to condos, and then sell them to first-time home buyers. And the issue has been the defects issues of the lawsuits, but we have that defects bill now. But I think what you could do is look at your budget, maybe during your retreat, and look at some additional funding for the Housing Authority, and then apply for matching grants with Colorado Housing and Urban Development again.
Thank you. Another question over here.
Yeah, I just want to say that I sit on the Housing Authority, and I do have some ideas for a new role for the Housing Authority, which I plan to bring up to the Housing Authority and the council at a later date. Unfortunately, I don't have an idea for funding source, though. We'll have to talk about that.
Other questions? Mr. Matthews.
I don't think it's any secret that I've not been a proponent of this proposal from the get-go. I would read one paragraph here. Because the sales tax credits has lagged and due to additional tax burdens on the project, the developer has requested the city extend its involvement from a limited duration, less than 2 years, to an extended period, 20 years. And that includes becoming a major partner and stakeholder in this project. We haven't even started construction yet, and we've got several change orders requesting a lot of money. As far as the Housing Authority is concerned, it's always been my considered opinion that they made an emotional decision with the purchase of the property to start with, and they bought a pig in a poke. And if they're out of money for a little while, I think they need to lie in the bed that they made, and perhaps next time not come begging to us with hat in hand for another couple $1 million to get them through a tough time.
Any other, I see Mr. Tullio would like to respond.
Well, yes, because there wasn't a emotional decision to buy the property. I sat at the table with the school district, with the Housing Authority back in, a few years ago, and that property was purchased by the Housing Authority at the time to look at housing back then. And we had actually projects and renderings for that building, apartments or condos or lofts for that property. And it was because of the economy had tanked in 2008 and previous, that those properties and those plans were put on hold. So really, it's fulfilling, if this project passes tonight, it's fulfilling the original intent was housing. It wasn't purchased because of an emotional reason to save it. I mean, the property was $100,000, $103,000 from Jefferson County School District. And, but it was purchased with the idea of starting some redevelopment and some housing options in that part of town, in that Fruitdale area.
Mr. Ann, you have a question?
Not really a question, just a few comments that, I've supported this project from the beginning. I support historical buildings. I know that area needs to be revitalized. I've just been really torn, and I still don't know which direction I'm going to go, because I've always felt and have thought, it's $2.5 million. Could we utilize that somewhere else in the city on a bigger scale instead of just one particular area? Could we use it to help, some of our drainage issues through Lena Gulch, Clear Creek? What the cost is for some of those folks there for their flood insurance. I think there's about 150 homes. I don't know exactly. There's no one here that can answer that for me, I don't think. Do you know how many homes are in that area? About 150. I think they pay about, I think it's $150 a month. Comes out to $1,800 a year. Would we be better to serve them in that aspect? I just don't know. That's where my thoughts are going right now. It's a lot of money. We're asking our taxpayers, here, should we invest it all in just one spot? We just got done getting approved for a sales tax increase with 2E. And so it's mostly just a comment of that's where I'm coming from, and that's where my thoughts are right now.
Thank you. And Mr. Pond?
A lot, just a few things to say, and we've seen a lot of this, so I'd be remiss if I didn't thank everyone who's involved for their participation, patience, due diligence, passion, commitment to the city, to a building, to a street, neighborhood. So thank you. That means a lot. This is a risk. There's no doubt about it, and I think we've been talking around that risk for a while, and I think there's a few positive things that I come away with right now related to that, is that as we've talked around that risk, we've actually in some ways tried to, in many complicated ways, tried to manage the package, manage the agreements, been flexible to try to really incorporate the most legitimate and appropriate response to the risk or different risk categories throughout the project. So we haven't been kind of circling around this while everyone else has been in stasis, just waiting for us to make a decision. We've all been working on this on our side, on private side, on staff side. And again, I want to commend everyone for working so hard and being, so, I think, to take the risk so, as important. But I suppose the thing that I will say about the risk is that here we are at a place to jump in. We've thought about this and we've done our due diligence, and I do think that we should move forward. I will be voting for this, and I think in many ways that we're going to come to this place. I really hope we're going to come to this place many times in our future, where we're going to be looking at deals. We're going to try to have those evolve. We're going to try to do the best we can for the city, and at some point then we will move forward and take that risk. And it's not, and I don't want that to sound as a negative thing at all, because I believe once that due diligence has been done, the risk is what we need to do to advance these concepts. They don't advance themselves without risk. I suppose if they did, these things would be happening all around us every moment, and we wouldn't be talking about this. But so here we are, and I absolutely think that Councilwoman Duran's question, can we use this money for something else? That's a good question. We should absolutely ask that. And I suppose in the most general sense, can we use this money for something else? The answer is yes. I think in the more rigorous sense, as we look at how we invest in our community and how we invest in some of the urban corridors that need our help, and I would say 44th is absolutely one. And I've sat up here and heard people absolutely, with passion and on the anger spectrum, talk about why aren't we focusing some of our attention on other corridors like 44th Avenue, and that has come up multiple times. I want to remind us all of that because here we are, I think, in an appropriate position to step forward with reasonable risk and reasonable expectation to invest in 44th Avenue, and it's necessary. And I do hope that we have the conversation in the future. I hope we have another conversation up here. I hope it's soon, where we say, wow, this is really complicated and this is hard and we're really cutting it down and this is a little bit risky, and that we continue to ask ourselves, where can we invest our money in our community, in our assets. Now, to just say that, in study session maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, I stated that largely this is about preservation. In fact, tonight we've talked a little bit about preservation, a lot about the ability to catalyze some of the movement that we hope for on this corridor. So really, I do think that we're accomplishing two things. We're preserving an asset, historic asset of our community, and that's good. That is good work. And we're also trying to incite change on an urban corridor. That is good work too. So we're doing two, I think, important things, and I know there's going to be other benefits. Again, I don't say any of this with in a casual sense that $2 million is not an important figure. It is, but I do think that we're ready to make this decision. I'm ready to make this decision. I'm ready to vote yes tonight.
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Fitzgerald.
This has been, I'm going to vote yes on this. This has been a very difficult decision for me. Before I go on, though, I would really like to thank Mr. Johnstone and Hartman Ely for the years of work that have gone into this. And the Housing Authority has been at this since 2008, the city almost the same amount of time. Hartman Ely for years also. The financing on this project is the most complicated I have ever seen. The contract is so complicated, only a lawyer could love that contract. Probably. I have tossed this back and forth. I've decided to vote yes. But on the negative side, I think we have to face the negative side. The city's going to have $2.585 million in this. The Housing Authority is going to have $871,000 in this. That's a lot of money. We're going to be spending over $200,000 per unit. We're going to be loaning over $200,000 per unit on this. The county has got another $600,000 in loan, and then there are the tax credits. So by the time it's all said and done, public money for this is going to be over $4 million. So that's the negative side. The positive side is if we go forward with this, we will get our money back, despite the fact that it's going to be, in some cases, it could be as long as 35 years from now. And the Housing Authority especially is on the hook because some of that payment doesn't start until the 11th year. So that's a difficulty. But also is the public benefit for this. I'm not opposed to spending money for public benefit. So the question is, will this be a catalyst for 44th? And I think the answer has to be yes. There's already some things happening on 44th. And one of the great things about 44th is a lot of the businesses already are in an association with one another to try and make their street better. So that really has the synergistic going for it there. So I think it will be a catalyst. And basically, if we vote no on this, we already have over $300,000 in this. If we vote no, we'll have to pay to tear it down, and we'll have to mitigate it first. So by the time it's all said and done, it's going to cost us somewhere between $750,000 and $1 million just to plow it down. And that's money we won't get back. So yes, there's risk, but if we go forward, we're going to get that money back. If we don't go forward, then we're going to lose at least $750,000. So I'm going to vote yes.
Ms. Davis?
Actually, more or less Tim had said what I was basically going to say, but I do think, this is something I am going to support, the 35-year loan. Again, that's, oh my goodness, 35 years. However, again, it's a loan and not a grant where we initially started off. And again, I think we're in a situation where as a city, we have already invested a lot of money in this property. And to move forward, again, as Mr. Fitzgerald had said, that it's gonna cost us a lot of money to, $1 million to possibly back out of it, and then we're sitting there $1 million to probably have to make another agreement, public partnership, private partnership with another group who might want to build on that area. And so those dollars again will probably eventually still need to be there. I think also as they discussed in the audit, the fact that we have an interested group that's committed and spending a lot of time and getting a lot of funding from other sources has shown a lot of commitment and for this project to move forward. So again, I think it is, yes, it's a lot of money, the idea of some of the payment, but as Ms. Hoppe said, that 61% of it will be paid back within 18 months. So I think that's good news. And I do think that it somewhat reminds me of the 44th and Wadsworth property, that at one point the city had bought it for plans for Jefferson County, and then the bottom fell out from under that deal, and so then we sat there empty, spent a lot of money, $4 million or so in tearing buildings down and doing those types of things, and then again we had a public-private partnership that ended up being a great benefit to our community and with some housing for seniors. So it is something I'm supporting. I'll be excited again to see it in fall, and I think there is a lot of things to weigh out, and I think it's going to be a great project.
We've had a couple of people who have wanted to speak who are part of our public speaking, and I'd like to let them have that opportunity.
I have not spoken yet.
Did you want to speak
Yeah.
first?
Thank
Please.
you. One question I had was, there was a definition here as it relates to, in the Article 1, as it relates to the project, it defines affordable, and I didn't know if we had an actual definition of what the affordable units meant, or if it was a home funds definition of affordable, or how that was being defined, or?
Yeah, it's really subject to Jefferson County administration of the HUD rules. So as it's been contemplated for this project, it's a mix of 80% area median income units, and I think one 50 or 60% AMI unit as well. So one of the five would be that lower threshold, and then the others would be 80% AMI. And those numbers are all established by the county, subject to HUD rules.
And do we know if any research has been done by the title company related to the reverter clause, and if any extended exposure coverage is going to be required, or if that's necessary in this deal?
I've spoken with the title company, and I'm reviewing the most recent version of the commitment. As you get closer to closing, the title commitment, gets run through the machine a bunch of times, and they keep dropping exceptions. And there is not presently an exception for that reverter, because I pointed out to them that the reverter clause was eliminated, and the district court's decree was finalized in the spring of this year. So I don't see that they will be requiring any insurance, because they're not even now listing it on their B1 exceptions list or their B2 list.
Okay. And then the terms on each of these loans are concurrent, correct, in that the 35-year term and the 20-year term are concurrent terms, as opposed to there's a 35-year term and then a 20-year term after that.
That's correct, yeah. So you don't end up with 55.
Correct.
The sentences are served concurrently.
Just making sure we're clear.
Your sentence is concurrent.
And then as it relates to the reserve policy, how is it defined so that it's getting across the bottom, so to speak?
Yeah, that was one of the major changes in this last round of negotiations, that we stipulate that the city will not make an appropriation that takes us below their 17% reserve level. So we're still committing to the same amount of funds, and which I've projected this out of the city's contribution, we can provide up to 1.7 million of that without going into reserves, and then the housing authority can provide all of theirs. So almost 72% of the total funding, which is about 2.3 million, can be provided for them. appropriated right away so they can get moving. Then when we reevaluate, when we close our budget at the end of 2016, our reserves typically jump up because we usually spend less and we have more revenues. So we'll reevaluate at that time on how much more we can contribute. So it's going to have to be a cash flow exercise with the developer on keeping above our 17%.
And so as it relates to our cash flow, how does our cash flow reserve policy and this deal reflect or impact any kind of bond rating for our 2E bond issuance?
Yeah, you know, they were initially, they're still looking at that. They're running basically a credit check on the city as we speak. They said it's definitely not going to help our credit rating, but they don't think it's going to have a huge impact, but it potentially will have an impact, especially if we went below the 17% reserve. But now that we're not, I believe that providing a loan of this amount is not going to have any impact on our credit.
Do we have any kind of assurances to that effect or underwriting to that effect or ability to?
Unfortunately not as of tonight, yeah.
I equate it to going out to apply for a mortgage and going out and buying a big truck the night before closing, and wanting to make sure that we're doing everything possible in a prudent way so that we're not.
No, I understand, and I wish we had better information for tonight. That about the only verbal assurance I can give you again was that he was more concerned about going below the 17% reserve because he had a policy on the books. He said if you didn't have a policy, it wouldn't matter. It was because you actually have a policy on the books and we were going below it, even though you can based on the policy. But again, his initial look at it saying that a loan of $2.1 million, he wasn't really concerned.
And that was my initial question to the city manager prior to tonight's meeting was based on our existing reserve policy and our violation of such, would that be a mark against us in any potential bond rating of the bond issuance entities out there as it relates to our bonding capacity and going forward and our ability to achieve the lowest possible interest rates on those bonds. So that, as it relates to this deal, I think the amount of care and the amount of attention that's been given to this deal equates to the care and attention that has been given to Fruitdale over the years, and the amount of interest and importance that building has within our community. And as such, I think it's important to preserve those types of structures, both for our heritage and for our posterity. At the same time, we cannot, bite our nose to save our face in the sense that we don't want to necessarily forego our ability to improve our existing infrastructure without considering some of the impacts that these types of deals might have on that. And I just wanted to make sure that that wasn't the case. And I'm generally in favor of this project, although I do have some concerns as it relates to that bond issuance question. I will be voting in favor of this project because I do think that we definitely need to follow the mantra of retail follows rooftops, and that the more that we can revitalize the side of the road and improve upon the development of the side of the road and focus on what we can do to improve and redevelop what's happening on the side of the road as opposed to developing the road, that's where I think we can get the biggest bang for our buck. And this project would be a good catalyst for that neighborhood, and I think would go a long way towards connecting this part of Wheat Ridge to what will inevitably be the Gold Line area as well. So I think that this is a good move for our city and for the next 100 years as we look to preserve this building, and hopefully this is a good move for our city.
Thank you. Now, would it be appropriate that we would have the two people who signed up to comment? Mr. Abo, I see, and Janice Thompson.
Good evening. I'm Ron Abo. I live at 45 Hillside Drive, and been Wheat Ridge resident for 21 years. My architectural firm is also the architect of record for the Fruitdale Lofts. So I'm speaking in favor of the project. First of all, this is a very historic building, and many people in the community, when I tell them I'm involved in this, they say, oh, I went to that school. My kids went to that school. And now my grandkids are going to that school. So that, there's a real connection there to the community that, that really doesn't have a price tag. It's, the emotional effect that somebody mentioned. From a deal standpoint, I've been involved in many projects where government has been the catalyst for private development. We worked with the city of Denver 30 years ago in their neighborhood business revitalization program. Excuse me. And one of the projects was 32nd and Lowell. So this started in the 80s, and look at it now. The city had a revolving loan program, so the money wasn't given to the property owners. The city actually loaned money at zero interest for half of the improvements, and then the property owners worked with the participating bank at their regular interest rate. So, that stimulated, the rebirth of that area. The location of Fruitdale is almost exactly a mile from the Ward Road station on the goal line and the Ridge station on the goal line. And I think 44th can really become a corridor of opportunity. I've seen it happen in other areas, South Broadway. Our business is on, my firm is on West Colfax, and we've seen incredible activity there since the West Line has gone in. So light rail, mass transit really does spur development. The fact that Fruitdale is right in the center of that activity, I think will be a huge benefit for the corridor. And then finally, Jim and Susan, working with them has just been incredible. I've known Jim for 20 plus years. When I was president of AIA Denver, Jim was the chair of the Historic Preservation Committee when he was still a practicing architect. He's still an architect, and he designed the Fruitdale Lofts, and we've carried it through and will be the architect of record. But Jim is a very demanding client, very detail-oriented, and he doesn't leave a stone unturned in terms of quality, in terms of delivering a product that he would be proud of, the community would be proud of, that we would be proud of, to put our stamp on the drawing. So I'm glad I hear so many positive comments about it, and I encourage the rest of the members of council to vote for it too. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. That was very informative. Janice Thompson.
Janice Thompson, 12290 West 42nd Avenue, Wheat Ridge. I had a little prepared speech here, but your comments have just sparked new thoughts. First of all, on the Housing Authority, the Housing Authority is kind of an emotional thing anyway. We have people that can't afford housing. That's emotional. These people have been able to get into the homes that we have developed, over 50 homes in the city of Wheat Ridge. For these people, they're firemen, they're people that work at the hospital, policemen, whatever their occupation is, teachers. They've been able to move into this community and make this part of their home, their life. That's emotional. It has helped give a little bit of a boost to a neighborhood when you have a dilapidated house, and we've come in and we've remodeled this home, re-landscaped it and everything, that gives the incentive for someone else to be brave and say, hey, I want to invest in my home. I want to invest in my neighborhood. That's emotional. And so, yeah, the Fruitdale is emotional. It wasn't bought on an emotional thing. It was bought for housing. That's what we bought it for. So then we ran into all these roadblocks, weren't able to develop it. So the Housing Authority was at a point where we went, okay, we need to partner with someone. We can't afford to buy any homes right now because a run-down, dilapidated house, $250,000. We couldn't do that. We couldn't go in and put $70,000, $80,000 into that home and make it affordable. So here comes Hartman. This man and his team have been the most wonderful people that Wheat Ridge could ever ask to work with. And I think the thing that Wheat Ridge needs to look for is developers who are brave enough to go into an area that hasn't been given very much consideration by the city of Wheat Ridge. I've lived there since 1955. We've got a truck stop, we've got a bookstore, we've got all of this wonderful stuff out there that just brings in so much revenue for the city of Wheat Ridge and just has helped us so much in that community. And so those of us that live in that area, it's emotional because we watch study after study after study, thousands of dollars poured into studies on 38th Avenue because you want to revitalize that. Wadsworth, you want to revitalize that. Oh, we got 4 lanes on 44th years ago, thank you, but that increased the traffic. Did it help bring in any brave developers that wanted to improve that area? It hasn't. So now we have an opportunity with Fruitdale, which, yes, it is emotional, because it is going to give us the opportunity, finally, to be recognized as an area that needs help. So now we have the rails coming in. We have the vacant land where Cabela's is not building, but someone else. If they start seeing a brave developer come into our area, that can help us. And that's what we need. We need the city to be brave. We need developers to be brave. And I think the city of Wheat Ridge has gotten a bum rap a lot of times with developers because they look upon Wheat Ridge as an area that is not willing to work with developers. Well, let's show people something different. Let's show them that we want to work with this quality developer who has always, all of his developments, he's been honest up front, and he is a promise keeper. Look at his developments, and you will see that he keeps his promise. Now, we can't look in the crystal ball and know where we'll be 5, 10, 15 years from now, but we have to take a step somewhere. And I think in the report that came out from the, in your packet, from Andrew Knudsen, where he said the very last sentence, and I really think this is what hit me in this whole report. It said, cities which are the most conservative regarding their investments and placement of reserves incur the least amount of risk. But here's the catchphrase, they also generate the least amount of change. So be brave, step forward, help Fruitdale, help the city of Wheat Ridge enter a whole new era. And as a resident of that area, I'm begging you, help us revitalize that area from 32nd Avenue all the way to Kipling. That is the most visible part of the city of Wheat Ridge on I-70. Drive it, look what's there, and then say, wow, that's the gateway to Wheat Ridge. And it isn't very pretty, so I would ask you, help these people, help us revitalize our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, council, is a motion, or we can discuss some more.
Are we ready for a motion?
I believe we are.
Okay. I move to approve resolution number 50-2016, a resolution approving an amended and restated development agreement for the Fruitdale School property.
Second.
I don't know who won that race. The three of them on the end.
Ms. Hoppy got that.
We're going to give it to Ms. Hoppy. If there's no further discussion, we can go ahead and cast your votes.
Motion carries 7-1 with Councilmember Matthews voting no.
If I may, I'd like to respond to the last citizen comment.
You know, usually when it's over, it's over. But
Okay. Matters.
yeah, that'll be fine. Thank you.
If you would, please.
All right, we do have item number 6, which is the last item for the evening, the business meeting.
Thank you. Motion to elect Mayor Pro Tem. Each year, city council members nominate and elect by majority vote a mayor pro tem who serves until their successor is elected. The election is conducted according to Section 3 of the City Council Rules of Orders and Procedures. Each council member has been provided a nomination form in their agenda packets, or in other words, in front of your seats. You are asked to fill out this form, fold it, and hand it to the city clerk at this time, and the city clerk will announce the results of the ballot, secret ballot. Council members will confirm the election of the new mayor pro tem by a motion and vote. The council is encouraged to confirm the majority nomination unanimously.
Thank you. Generally, one of you will make a motion. You'll nominate a person. That person is encouraged to say something, and then you will go to the vote. There may be more than one nomination, and each person can speak for themselves. We will then have the secret vote. Okay, the count comes up, and whoever receives the most votes will be the one chosen, and then there must be an official motion and second for that person. Okay. Yes.
Do we nominate them through this and then give them it, and then when she counts it?
Yeah.
And gives it, and then they could have a
Nominate
chance
through
to
your
speak.
ballots, secret ballots, you give it to the city
Yeah.
clerk. She tabulates them, and then she announces who had the most nominations.
And then,
And then
And
you
then-
take a motion to approve that person.
yeah, and then, perhaps
Council
people
rules
can
just
speak after that
say that.
time.
Yeah. So write your nomination on your form, give it to city clerk, and then she announces who got the most nominations.
You got all three of yours in?
Found a
Oh,
typo.
there's two. I'm going through here.
No, I talked to Jeff. Just to make sure that there's two.
Everybody?
How come there's so many of them?
And if you didn't mark it clearly, we'll have to have a recount.
Yeah.
Future refinance or sale of the property. I do want it in here because it's not.
Please, Diane. Ought to get Kathy.
Recorded, we got other signatures.
Yeah, good for you. God, I hate that. This was not going the way I thought it was to go.
Do you want the numbers?
No.
Just the council rules just say that you announce the highest vote getter on the paper ballots.
The highest vote getter is Councilmember Pond.
And under the council rules, once you've heard that, the next appropriate motion is a motion to to appoint Councilmember Pond. The council rules go on to say that even though it's nice that it be unanimous, you are not, of course, required to vote that way, and you made that point clear when we revised the rules last time.
Okay, would you please?
I move to elect Councilmember George Pond as Mayor Pro Tem, effective immediately, term to expire upon election of his successor.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. Please cast your votes.
Oh, wait, clear to make sure. Okay. Motion carries 8-0.
Now get that retreat plan, would you?
Yeah, and a lot of other stuff. And that ends our business meeting for the evening. Let's move on to city managers' matters.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Real quick, since it's late here, we did get a couple of requests, well, maybe just one from Councilmember Urban to have an update from RTD. Didn't get anybody here this evening, but we do, Dave Genova, the executive director of RTD, reached out to me a week or so ago and wanted to sit down with the mayor and I, and he does have we have a meeting scheduled for Wednesday. So just to give us an update on the Gold Line, I can tell you there's not much there to update at this point, but maybe we'll get more information from him. But from what I know, I sent you some talking points that they RTD distributed a week ago. But at this point, they're saying the Gold Line it'll be a 2017 opening. They won't give us a month or a day at this point. Their issues, they're not allowed to open until they correct the issues on the A line. So, but otherwise, I think they're getting closer. But hopefully, we'll have a better update on Wednesday, which either the mayor or I can verbally give to you, or we can try to get somebody out at a future meeting too, if you'd like.
Thank you.
City attorney,
Nothing, thank you.
city clerk.
Nothing tonight. Thank you.
Let's start with District 1.
Oh, I guess it's more of a question regarding the retreat, if there's any dates you have or discussed. Also, I think the last meeting we had, Councilor Urban had mentioned having it maybe at the American Motel, but my thoughts, I'm fine with that, but my thoughts would be that I think it'd be a great idea for all of us to really take a tour of the areas around the city that are of concern, so we can actually be there, see it for ourselves, and assess it. Secondly, is it possible, wherever we do have the retreat, is it possible to have it recorded where we're at?
Anything's possible, Ms.
Okay, great.
There's a
I like
cost.
that attitude.
If you want a video recorded, that's a little different, which I think that's possible too. There's definitely a more cost to it than doing it here. We get audio recorded. We always do some type of summary report at the end of it with conclusions of the retreat. So there's different ways we could look at.
Okay, something we could
recording it.
discuss.
Yep.
Okay.
We do. George and I did. Mr. Pond and I did discuss kind of how to move forward with the retreat, and I think there was a lot of discussion at the last meeting of maybe doing some study session items first, maybe retreat, kind of preparing for a retreat, and we identified that December 19th is open right now, a study session with no other items, so we were thinking maybe we do an initial, maybe an hour and a half, 2 hour kind of retreat to talk about vision and goal setting, what it means, and talk about our current, a little bit of history, which I think some of you asked for, where we've come, how we've gotten to where we are today, what previous goals we've had in place. So that's one suggestion, that we get started with that, and then find some dates for after the first of the year so that we could have a sit-down retreat to maybe look at bigger goal setting and visioning, or actual more specific strategic planning action items that I know a couple of you would like to do. So I don't know if George wanted to add to that.
Well, I think the short answer is we don't have a firm date yet, and what we did here, and I think you raised a good point about the tours, is that we might have a little bit of work up ahead of an actual retreat. So I think now we're just trying to kind of get those sessions booked in. The 19th is an opportunity. We'll probably have another one in January. So I think after the first of the year we'll start to identify. My guess is probably a date in February.
Thank you. Ms. Hoppy? Ms. Hoppy.
Last week I forgot to wish everybody a happy holiday. So this week I'm going to say, I hope you had a happy holiday. And I am hoping to get together a meeting with myself, an open community meeting with myself, either in December or beginning of January. So as soon as I get that planned, then I will let you all know. Thanks.
Mr. Urban?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Tomorrow evening, my understanding is that the RTT board will be discussing a contingency plan to allow either a reopening or a supplemental A-line shuttle from the park and ride at the Old Town Park and Ride to supplement what was previously the A-line shuttle operated from the park and ride in Old Town to DIA that was suspended of service in expectation of the G-line opening. But now that the G-line is delayed in opening, they're talking about opportunities to bring that back open, and so hopefully that may come to fruition. There was one other thing I wanted to talk about, but I can't remember what that is at this point. That's it for now. Thank you.
Mr. Pond?
I'm good tonight. Thank you for letting me do a little bit more work as Mayor Pro Tem, and we'll get this retreat going and have a good year.
Thank you. Ms. Davis?
I actually had nothing tonight, but as I was looking at my calendar for dates, I noticed it's your birthday tomorrow, so happy birthday. Happy birthday.
Oh, you're making me blush.
I'd like to remind everybody that December 3rd at 6:30-ish is the Christmas tree lighting on the green put on by Local Works, and invite everybody there. It's usually pretty nice. And I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank Jim Hartman and what he has gone through for Fruitdale, because he really has stuck to this, and it has been a difficult job to make this work. And I congratulate him and thank him for the work he's put into this.
Ms. Davis?
So I'm sorry, I forgot one thing. Actually, on December 3rd is the grand reopening of the McDonald's on Wadsworth, like 41st and Wadsworth. And they're having a lot of great events there. I think, if you didn't get the postcard, I did. It was where I had my first job, by the way, but it was a different building. But it's actually like for the first 150 children, they get coupons for Happy Meals. And there's also like there's a food drive, and if you bring 5 cans of food, then you also get coupons for sandwiches or breakfast sandwiches. But they're really trying to pull the community in this grand opening. So the ribbon cutting's at 2:30. I think the grand opening itself starts 11-ish, I believe. But isn't that right? The ribbon cutting's at 2:30? Yeah. So just, if people have a chance to stop by there this Saturday to go see their new digs and all the work they've done.
Great. We're on pins and needles.
I just wanted to say thank you for your impassioned and very well done presentation, and tell you that in principle, I agree with you heartily on all your points. And I don't think this is the time now for debate, but I do appreciate your input, and I'd like to chat with you for a few minutes afterwards here and get together with you. But that was very well done, and I appreciate your input.
Nothing. Thank you.
Nothing. You got nothing.
Madam Mayor.
Oh, boy, I tell you, we just got stuff going on.
And then we can go.
But Janelle, too.
Also, on December 3rd, there is the Christmas tree charity auction. It's from 3 to 6 at Stevens Elementary School, and it is benefiting the Ralston House for abused children. So put that on your calendar.
That's
from 3 to 6 on
yeah.
December 3rd.
The Wheat Ridge Business Association is putting that on.
Yes, they are.
And there's 6, 7 trees, 5 trees.
I think there's 8 trees.
That'll be up for auction with benefits.
Yes, completely decorated, and they will deliver it to you.
Right.
I remember the one thing.
They're going to drag it behind a car or something, right? Go ahead, Mr. Urban.
The one thing I forgot to mention, under the consent agenda tonight, the first thing that we passed was the 2017 City Council calendar, so we can all put that on our calendar as it relates to the study session and the city council meeting dates. So that's, I know John Clark and those in the audience, that's for you as well.
Okay, this Saturday is going to be a busy Saturday. In addition to the McDonald's opening, in the evening we're having the tree lighting, which is at 6:30. I'm also having coffee with the mayor, because this is the first Saturday, and I always have coffee with the mayor. And that'll be at 9 a.m. at Vinola's, as it always is the first Saturday of the month. So I hope somebody comes. John, I expect to see you there. Yeah. All right.
He's decorating Christmas.
He's decorating Christmas. What? I did.
Oh, you did, okay.
I did, Janelle, right.
No.
All right, we're good.
Okay.